afternoon. Please do take your seats and make yourself comfortable because we're in for a real treat this afternoon. Thank you very much to those of you all joining us here in the beautiful Royal Institution Lecture Theatre. A very warm welcome to those of you joining us virtually too. I'm Raya El-Salahi, and I'm really thrilled to be your host for what is going to be a fantastic afternoon. The Greenhouse Startup Demo Day, which is celebrating the achievements of Cohort 7 of the brilliant greenhouse startups. Before we dive in, I've just got a few points to run through. And firstly, just a little bit of background for those of you who are new to this space and a sense of what you can expect this afternoon as well. Now, the Greenhouse Accelerator launched back in January of 2021. It was as part of the Centre for Climate Change Innovation, which is now known, as you know, as Undaunted. And since then, 165 teams have completed the 12-month programme of support, between them raising over $1 billion in investment, active in more than 30 countries and creating over 1,600 jobs. And you have such a fantastic afternoon to look forward to today. The event will be split into two sections, and each will kick off with some expert guest speakers. That will be followed by 13 startup pitches, 6 in the first half, 7 in the second. And throughout, we'd love for you, the audience, to get involved. We ask for your participation at the end of each pitch, so please do keep your phones handy, but importantly, on silent. We're aiming to wrap up by around 4:30, at which point we invite you to join us for networking drinks. That will continue until 7 p.m. And each startup that you see on stage here today will have a designated standing table. That will be in the networking spaces just through the doors behind me. They should be really easy to find, but if you need help being pointed in the right direction, one of the Undaunted team will be more than happy to do so. Right, a couple of quick housekeeping points. There is no planned fire alarm today, so if you hear one, please exit the building quickly, following the fire exit signs that you can see illuminated above the doors in front of the stage. And bathrooms located on the ground floor, you will have walked past them. So if you need that, that's where to head. Okay, now that I've got all of that out of the way, time to kick things off, and I'm delighted to hand over to someone many of you will know and recognise, the Grantham Institute for Climate Change and the Environment's Director of Innovation and the Director of Undaunted, Imperial College London's Climate Change Innovation Hub, run in partnership with the Royal Institution. Please give a very warm welcome to Alyssa Gilbert, joined by the head of the Greenhouse, Mechapres.
As you know, Undaunted is Imperial College's hub for climate innovation. So we run a climate innovation program, and we do that together with the Royal Institution. And we're focused on trying to make London, but also the UK, a great place to start up and scale up your climate solution. And we do that by running a number of different support programs and activities at those very earliest stages of innovation, taking science and discovery into commercializable and implementable solutions. And you're going to see some great examples of that here today. What have we been doing over the past 6 months since you saw us last, apart from the usual activities? A couple of new things that we've been doing. We have kicked off a master's in cleantech innovation in September, and I'm calling it out particularly because I've seen some students in the audience, at least along there. You can give a bit of a shout. Yeah. So those are the people that you can expect to see on the stage in the future. And also, just about a month ago, we started a new program that's about scaling climate solutions. Still early stage, but we're looking at helping to support innovations that have had their seed investment already, but are looking to grow in the UK. And we're doing that together with 5 other universities in the UK. Some of them are also in the room today. We're working with Cranfield, Derby, Exeter, Nottingham, and Leeds, as well as other partners coming in from Swansea and Edinburgh as we grow that program. And we're really trying to help innovators not just start off their journey, but figure out how they grow and manufacture, hire talented staff in the UK to really make that journey successfully, from research and science and discovery, like we do at Imperial, through to creating green jobs and impact in this country. So we're doing lots of different things. We've got an international program being developed as well, and we can tell you more about that in the break. But in the meantime, you're here for the main event, which is to see the great startups that have been going through our flagship program, the Greenhouse Accelerator, which we could not run without the support of our colleagues, our friends at HSBC. Don't worry, it's not you yet. I'm just got a moment still. Our supporters at HSBC UK. This is our flagship program. We've been running it for 12 years. And I'm delighted to introduce to you the head of the Greenhouse Accelerator program, Maiko, who's going to tell you a little bit more.
Thank you, Alyssa, and thanks to all of you, whether you're investors, corporate students, innovators, academics, for you to come out here and join us today. I've joined as the head of the greenhouse, taking over from Jim, who's here as well today, in February, and I've just been so excited working with Cohort 7 and recruiting Cohort 8 as well. And really seen, obviously as somebody that has run a bunch of startup programs, really seen the magic of the Greenhouse program, and I hope you feel that today as well, as we support startups to really go from the lab validation to being ready for commercial deployment. So you'll hear those stories today, you'll hear those solutions, and a whole range of solutions that you will see as well across material science, hardware, software, really broad range biotech, and I'm really excited for you to get to know our startups. If you're already engaged in the program and supporting the startups, thank you. If you want to get involved, there is a couple of ways to get involved as a mentor or as an investor in actually meeting the startups early, even before the big demo day. So if there is any interest from you to engage with the program, catch me afterwards and let's have a chat. I hope you enjoy the pitches today. And one more thing I want to share today is that I'm really excited to announce our Cohort 8 as well. These are all the exciting companies for Cohort 8. You won't hear their pitches today. This is for Cohort 7 today. But just so you've seen them, again, quite a broad spectrum of companies, from early wildfire detection to robots that are doing wind turbine inspections. Again, not picking any kind of particular examples, but just to see the range of things. Fintech companies, material science, hardware, biotech. So again, quite a broad range of companies. If you want to meet them early before the demo day in a year from now, again, talk to me afterwards and meet me there. Handing over back to Rhea, and let's hear the pitches soon.
Okay, moving on to one of the key supporters and funders of the Greenhouse programme, who has already been teased to you this afternoon. I'm really delighted to invite our next speaker to the stage, HSBC UK's Head of Sustainability UK, Natalie Gregoire-Skeet. Please put your hands together for Natalie.
Thank you, Rhea. So yes, this is Cohort 7 of Undaunted at Imperial College. My name, as Rhea has said, Natalie Gregoire-Skeet. I am the Head of Sustainability at HSB UK and also our Head of Societal Purpose. Now, our partnership with Undaunted at Imperial College is very important for us at HSBC UK. Just last week, we took some ventures from a previous cohort to meet some of our global holdings board back at our headquarters at Canary Wharf. And our non-executive directors were really impressed at the quality of the innovations that those ventures were able to showcase. It's always great to bring our partners to meet our global holdings board because it gives us an opportunity to showcase the great work that is going on here. Rhea has already mentioned a few stats. So over 165 ventures across 30 companies and 30 countries, raising over 1.3 billion in finance since the start. Us at HSBC have been a supporter since 2021. There's also an 80% success rate for the ventures in this program. So I will say that is evidence of a very high bar to entry. So if you are already on this program, well done. Congratulations for making it this far. Brilliant. When I was thinking about what to talk about in this keynote, I looked at some of the other speeches that had been made before. So in Cohort 2, we had a director from the Royal Institute who talked about John Tyndall, who had discovered the greenhouse gas effect right here, which I've also now been able to see some of the instruments that he used, thanks to Alicia downstairs. Last year, you had our head of climate and energy, Tim Lord, who spoke about coming here when he was but a young head of climate and energy and having aspirations to return here when he was older, and he was able to do that. One thing that was also really great was in Alicia's speech last year when she mentioned that now that we had had a general election in the UK, we were entering a period of stability. Which, when you think about what's going on in geopolitics today, is probably not the first word we would use, but I think it's evidence that change is constant, and when you get a little bit of stability, appreciate it. So, back to some interesting facts that I try to bring you today. It's 2025. If you go anywhere in HSBC, you will be reminded that this year is the 160th anniversary of the founding of HSBC. HSBC was founded by somebody called Thomas Sutherland. He was from Aberdeen in Scotland, and he worked at a company called Peninsula and Oriental Steam Navigation, a company that we would know today as P&O Ferries. That company was targeted with revolutionizing communication and commerce from the Iberian Peninsula to London. So a bit like working in the equivalent of an AI startup or something. So back in 1852, the Peninsula and Oriental Navigation Steam Company sent the first steamer from the UK down to Australia. That took 84 days. Now, with the innovation that we have today, we can get to Australia in 24 hours, but if you have kids, it might feel like 84 days. Let's say that. So some more interesting facts. In 1860, a lot of that communication was by mail, physical letter. If you were to post a letter, and 564 letters were delivered by Royal Mail back in 1860, if you were to go to your local post box and post a letter, that post box was emptied about 10 to 12 times a day. So you could post a letter and reasonably expect it to get delivered in the same day, which again is something which we probably can't reasonably expect today unless you're going to get a courier to work it across. However, we send 370 billion emails a day. That's huge. So when you look back at the journey of innovation for communications, some of it has actually slowed down to make space for new forms of communication. So whatever innovation that you are looking at right now, it may be something that goes in a straight line, or it may be something that makes space for you to go ahead and start the next world's largest bank, or the largest bank in Europe. But it's something for us to think about. You, within the innovative space, are key to economic progress and growth, which is something that's very dear to us at HSBC. We have the HSBC Innovation Bank, which at its core supports growing businesses. We target $1 trillion in sustainable finance investment by 2030. We're also targeting $1 billion in climate tech investment. We aim to be a net zero bank in 2050. So we are all parts of this ecosystem looking for progress, economic growth through innovation. And once again, I'm very lucky to be part of HSBC and being able to see what Cohort 7 is going to add to the next step of economic progress. Thank you.
Many thanks to Natalie and to our opening speakers. Moving on, it's almost time to hear from our first group of climate innovators. Let me just give you an idea of how this session will run. Each team will deliver a short pitch sharing their innovation, their vision, and how you might be able to support them today. And we'd love for you to get involved, as I mentioned, by submitting your questions. And we do that via Mentimeter, which you can see on the screen behind me. You access that using your phone. Head to menti.com and just enter the code 35830641. You can also, of course, scan the QR code, which is probably an easier way of doing it than me giving you the number. Wi-Fi details are also on the screen now too if you need them. And you can submit your questions towards the end of each pitch. We'll select a few of them to put to the teams, and any that we don't get to, you can, of course, put to the teams yourself during networking later on. Now, after all of the pitches in this session, we will also ask you to score each of the teams in 3 key areas, again using Mentimeter. And the key areas that we ask you to score them on are the commercial potential of the innovation, the climate impact of the idea, and the quality of their pitch. And at the end of today's event, we'll announce the top 3 highest scoring teams based on your votes. And they will each, of course, receive an award here at the front of the stage. So please do take part. Enough from me. Let's get on to the first group of really exciting innovators. To kick us off with a focus on carbon solution and climate resilience, please welcome to the stage our first founder, Sunny from Ventric.
Hi, everyone. We're Ventric Labs, and we're transforming buildings around the world into carbon capture hubs. Buildings contribute to 26% of the total greenhouse gas emissions, and 1/3 of that comes from direct emissions, such as on-site fossil fuel burning. And through speaking to 140 different buildings, we identified these unique problems where breweries are currently purchasing CO2 to carbonate their drinks, but they're emitting 2 to 3 times than they buy. At the same time, they have this cost problem where they could be paying anywhere from 300 pounds to 4,000 pounds per ton because they're not buying in bulk, or they have this volatile supply chain problem. So Ventric can offer a very compelling solution to cut this cost down to 1,300 pounds per ton today, at 300 pounds at year 3. How do we do that? We're turning waste emissions into high-grade CO2. Our technology harvests waste energies within the building to power our ultra-low energy consumption carbon capture unit. After the carbon is captured, we either recycle it for food or medical grade use, or we remove it by storing it underground or mineralizing it. And because of our technology, we can reach up to 90% more energy efficiency than our direct air capture competitors. And the V1 unit is for a recycling use case, and here we're offering 2.8 years of payback period as of today, and after we manufacture 200 units, we can reach 6 months. And that unit itself covers the entire total addressable market of on-site CO2 supply for food and beverages, hospitals within the UK, US, and EU. And here, we can really help with SMEs that are paying too much for their CO2 consumption. And we're starting with the breweries in the UK first. How are we going to do that? We're going to slowly roll out our paid pilots within the next 18 months. We're going to start our direct sales to lead 70 units of sales by the end of 2028 before we transition to subscription-based sales. Here, we're going to ramp up our sales at 700 units by the end of 2030 before we reach a point to license our technology to gas providers or estate developers. This entire strategy yields over £1 million in profit by the end of year 3. And at scale, we want to build a decentralized carbon capture, utilization, and storage network where excess carbon captured can be used, reused, removed locally within the built environment. And this allows us to tap into the built environment ventilation systems where HVAC-based carbon capture can reach a 2 gigaton level impact within the built environment. Across vertical 1, for reuse, we're leading in compactness. This means low capex, which is the main barrier for entry for on-site CO2 recovery customers. And across vertical 2, for removal, we're leading in both size and energy efficiency. Just to recap, we're extremely energy efficient. We're modular, easy to use. We're providing price stability and low cost and a quick payback period. So far, we reached TRL level 5 in under 6 months since incorporation. We then went on to secure 7 on-site visits, 3 LOIs signed, and 2 supplier partnerships established. And our file's currently finished drafting and looking to be filed. Our patent has already finished drafting and looking to be filed alongside our trial next month ahead of our pilot and early rollouts. And we have a great team to do this. Together, we have 7 years of manufacturing experience, formal startup leadership experience, research expertise in carbon capture and mechanics, and our advisory board has decades of expertise in carbon capture, energy transition, and commercializing climate technologies. Today, we're inviting investors to join our decentralized net zero future. We're turning buildings into active climate solutions. And we're going to start with our pre-seed that's currently open of £800,000 to fund our trial, pilot, and the early rollouts, and closing by Q2 2025. This is Ventric, and we're transforming buildings around the world into carbon capture hubs.
Well done. We'd now like to invite your team members to do the Q&A, and I'll ask you to all file in to the side if you can. Okay. While the questions come in, just a reminder, you can scan the QR code above me. Let me come on the other side of you so you'll have space. And you can put your questions, submit your questions via there. To kick things off, tell us about your IP strategy. What are you planning to defend first?
So that's a really good question. The crux of our IP lies into how we're integrating within the system. So to understand that, you kind of have to understand the landscape right now. A lot of carbon capture and direct air capture have invested heavily in industrial-sized machinery, so industrial-sized patents. And what we're significantly smaller, and that changes the mechanics of the system. So we can be up to 40 times smaller than them, which is insane. And we also have to take into account that we're integrated into a building, which changes the fluid mechanics of the system. So the solid mechanics and the fluid mechanics are different to industrial-sized DAC. And so that is the kind of crux of where our first patent will lie. We also, because we're so small, we can harvest not just external heat loss or excess resources, but also our own heat recovery systems. That's another point where that brings our energy efficiency down super, super low. And then going forward, we also hope to automate the entire process. Our dynamic control and current point source capture, carbon capture, has not been innovated on in a while. So that's also a differentiator within the market that we're in right now.
Okay. While those questions come in, yes, we do have one in. Talk to us about how you plan to scale to different markets.
Yeah, I can take that question. So currently, our unit can be used specifically within breweries or any sort of on-site CO2 recovery. So that mechanics itself is very adaptable to different sites. So we can move from breweries to wastewater and treatment plants very, very easily because the unit itself is pretty much the same. It's just the different flue gas or the gas streams that are coming in that are different. So we just have to adapt to those. But I'll let Yuchen explain a bit more about that as well.
So for us, our units is winning in the first is a recovery rate, which is very important for the brewery market. Secondly, our unit can adapt to the different purity of the CO2, have a very wide range, lower down to the 15% up to the 99%. So that's allowed us to bolt on to the various markets like the wastewater treatment plant and other CO2 use case.
Okay, brilliant. Another question in from the audience asks what the main commercial uses are for CO2 other than breweries. How big is the market?
Yeah, so currently we are working with merchant CO2 market. So this mainly means that we're recycling CO2 for food or medical grade use and as well as industrial grade use. So this is including welding gas, hospital gas. So yeah, any sort of on-site CO2 reuse, that's what we can provide to. At scale, we can also embed the CO2 within cement to sequester that. So what we're planning to do is to build a decentralized network locally within the built environment so that the transportation cost for sequestering CO2 is extremely lower than some of our other competitors. So so we can sequester it within cement. We can inject it underground for cities that are closer to the coastline and near the injection slots. Yeah.
Okay. Moving on, what is the origin of CO2 captured?
So mainly currently we're looking at point source. So this is including brewery fermentation gas, as well as gases, flue gas from gas boilers within the built environment, such as commercial buildings. But we also have the ability to do direct air capture, so where the origin will be from the air as well. So because this unit itself is sorbent agnostic, it's extremely versatile, and this is designed for that.
Okay, that brings us to time. Thank you very much, Team Ventric. A fantastic first pitch. It's not easy standing here in front of you all and sharing these ideas. So thank you to Sunny and the Team Ventric there. Just a reminder, if you had further questions that we were unable to get to, you can, of course, chat to all of the teams you see presenting their pitches here today during the networking at the end of the event. Moving on, we have Chintan and Adam from Captchar ready to share their innovation with you. Please give them a warm welcome.
Good afternoon. We're here to tell you about our 2 fully funded pilots, where Captchar technology is already working to utilise waste wood to generate a triple win. Carbon negative heat, biochar and carbon credits, saving energy and creating additional income. Trees are nature's original carbon capture, and in fact the government has advocated that we need to grow more trees if we're to reach net zero by 2030. However, we are losing more and more trees every year to damage, disease and destruction. And for every tree that's burnt, the majority of it creates a ton of carbon, releasing effectively more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. In fact, it's the equivalent of driving a family car, small family car, for a year. What a waste of a waste. This is Tom's yard. He is a tree grower with a ridiculous problem. Every year, he spends £30,000 on his gas heating bill, and at the same time fills 30 shipping containers full of waste wood, which he can't use due to its shape, size, and moisture content. Captchar technology can solve Tom's problem. We take his waste wood and we convert it into locally stored heat, while also generating biochar and carbon credits as byproducts. Our tech is modular, as you can see, so we can scale to meet customers' needs. And at less than 100K, our tech is 10 times less than the competition. Customers buy our technology, and then they pay a monthly fee to issue carbon credits, which they can either choose to keep, reducing their own emissions, or sell on.
So if Tom uses our technology, he basically has no more £30,000 gas bill. And by converting his waste wood into biochar, he essentially locks up 50% of the carbon permanently for potentially hundreds to thousands of years. At the same time, he can make a profit of potentially up to £20,000 in revenue. And that means that he can pay back our technology within 3 years. So we have a £500 million UK market opportunity, where we can go after 40,000 tree growers in the UK, just like Tom, who have waste wood that they could use for their heating. But we're not just stopping there. We're already talking to country estates, farms, and local authorities, all who have a similar problem. Our 2030 ambition is to achieve for our customers £100 million in fuel savings, fossil fuel savings, for our customers, and to reduce and remove 2 million tonnes of carbon dioxide within the same time period. We're raising £500,000 in 2025 to build our team, commercialise our solution, and to make UK sales, expanding internationally in 2027. We have invested £715,000 of 100% grant funding that we've received over the last 4 years to show that the Captchar solution works. We are an experienced team of founders who have built businesses across Australia, the UK, and Spain, and we have the battle scars to show the 25 years of experience doing so. My name is Adam Samuel.
And I'm Chinta Mahida, and we are co-founders of Captchar. We'd like to thank Undaunted for today's opportunity.
And if you guys have any questions, please come and talk to us at the stand afterwards. Thank you very much for listening.
You don't need to wait until after, because you can ask your questions now. Just scan the code above us here for your questions to put to Captchar. And let's kick things off with one while we're waiting for the questions to come in about the amount of waste wood available. Is there enough?
Well, there is. Actually, because of the reasons I discussed, we have got more storms that are creating damage, and over the next 30 years, we expect to lose 90% of our trees to ash dieback. So waste wood volumes are increasing, and we also can't plant as fast as we're losing them. So it makes sense to turn them into a better material.
So the latest stats also say that in the UK, we create 3.25 million tonnes of wood chip in the UK alone. So I think there definitely is plenty. But one of the things that's really important to us is to empower the people that use our technology and to start looking at trees and waste wood not as a waste, but as an asset, which means they value it more and therefore use it in their supply chain.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What's your path to scale, asks one audience member.
Our path to scale is essentially start in the UK. And so we're going to go after a number of different markets, as we said, tree growers, country estates, and those that have waste wood. There are many of them, but all of them have the same problem. So we have a solution that broadly works across the majority of those markets. But the UK is, of course, just one country, and there are many of these type of customers in many different parts of the world. So we will aim to look at expanding out internationally in 2027, probably starting in Europe, but we have a solution where our capex is low. So therefore, in places in the world where labor may be cheaper, our solutions should work even better.
Okay. Another question asks about the commercial uses of biochar. Who would be the buyer?
Well, at the moment, the UK doesn't actually make a lot of biochar. It's starting to scale up. We're a bit behind the times here. But biochar has many uses. Particularly, we've done a lot of work on farm where it has applications as a slow-release fertilizer. It also mitigates ammonia emissions. And also, it's becoming a materials aggregate. So you can add it to concrete to make it low carbon, asphalt. So yeah, there's quite a few applications of it. But we actually are working with people who we think would not be selling it. They will probably be using it on site themselves. So for example, the tree grower, if they use biochar, they can help their trees to survive longer.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Moving on, what makes you stand out from your competitors?
Great question. Well, I think anyone who knows the biochar market, and if you've looked into the technology, you've got two ends of a scale. You can make biochar in a skip or an oil drum. It's that easy, or even a pit. And many people do. The problem with that is that obviously we don't know how much methane is still coming off that, so therefore it's not great from a carbon perspective. At the other end, you've got continuous pyrolysis machines, which are very expensive, capex usually above £1 million, and there literally is very little in between. There's a few charcoal retorts, but again, they have their own issues. So we saw this as an opportunity 4 years ago, and we've been working to basically come up with a technology that is cheap, but also delivers everything that you need to deliver for a high-quality biochar, as well as the ability to get carbon credits in the future.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think we have time for just one more question. How developed is your carbon credit model?
Well, we've written our own biochar carbon code, which has been out for consultation. And we have already sold carbon credits, pre-sold carbon credits in our first pilot to a UK architect who was looking for high-quality carbon credits in the UK, obviously in light of issues with nature-based credit maybe coming from abroad.
So as well as that, we have actually set up a DMRV system, which is Digital Monitoring, Reporting and Verification System, which essentially looks at the provenance of the material and the full chain of custody audit of the material all the way through the process so that we can provide a high-quality carbon credit. So we are just about to do our first LTA and launch of the first issued carbon credits on our platform, and we will have our public registry up and running in a few weeks' time.
Fantastic. That brings us to time. Captchar, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for getting in some really good questions there. Next up, to step up and showcase their groundbreaking solution, please welcome Maria from Fidata.
Imagine investing $1 million in companies that will provide you a good returns, but also do not damage the environment. So raise your hand if you're going to invest in oil. Please do now. And raise your hands if you are going to invest in a beauty company. Disappointing, but I would expect that most of you will have invested in the beauty company, and they produce as much damage as the oil companies. Now, put yourself in the position of an analyst who is in the banks must assess thousands of companies for their environmental impacts. And they need a scalable means to do the job to the highest standard, as the banks need to decarbonize their portfolio and connect the environmental factors to financial risks. We are Fidata, and we are developing an ESG AI assistant to auto-generate detailed environmental reports. Let's consider a fantastic beauty company that has an end-of-year report of 450 pages, and they boast about how good they are doing for the environment. The analyst needs to read the report, extract the environmental matrix, and use their knowledge to critically assess the action of the company. Conservatively, that task would take a day and a half. But with Fidata, the same analyst could just click a button and wait for the task to be done for them. And in just 15 minutes, they will receive the results. Now, data providers have limited ability to assess company environmental impacts, and that's because they provide the metrics, but not the explanations how those metrics have been achieved. Large language models, which is the technology we are using, can help in that direction, but without being rigorously trained, it is not reliable. So we are developing a POC with proprietary methodology and training data that will allow us to auto-generate reports better and at a fraction of the time. And the beauty of this is that you don't need to be an analyst to use the tool, because we provide the explanation on how the assessment has been done. So we make teams 30 times more productive. Our revenue model is simple. It's a standard multi-tier price that is proportional to the number of assessments the company does, okay? So in this way, we serve smaller institutions that are outpriced by data providers and bigger ones. The EU policy is driving this market, but think about it. We are able, with our technology, to license to multiple departments to the same clients: private equities, asset manager, consultancy. We produce better results than data provider who charge hundreds of thousands of pounds for incomplete data sets. So we estimate that our obtainable market for the EU and the UK is well above 1 billion. We have 2 current pilots with a small commercial bank in Italy and with an asset manager in the UK. We won a prize from the Greening Finance Network for our solution. And we are a team of scientists, financier, and ESG expert. And my ask for you, and we have 40 years in delivering technology at the highest level. My ask for you today is to make introduction to us, to private equity and asset manager, head of sustainability, because we want at least double the number of pilots as we are fundraising in Q4 2025. Our solution is an excellent way to embed consideration, environmental consideration, to every single operation of the bank, and moving towards a truly sustainable and green finance. Thank you very much.
Maria, well done. Right, moving on to the Q&A. Hello. Please do get your questions in using the QR code above us. Let's kick one off with why banks would use you over tools in Gen IA, like ChatGPT, for example.
Yeah, so I think that AI is fundamentally hyped, and everybody talks about it, and probably most of you use ChatGPT, and it's a great tool, but effectively, if you look at the results, you always need to rework what has been done, right? And those tools are in no way fit for a regulated market such as the bank. So really our value proposition is to be absolutely rigorous and systematic in the way in which we train, to really mimic the work of the analyst, and over time we will produce more sophisticated products that will also look at transition risk and connecting financing with environmental factors for each single company. So Most of the banks at the moment rely on statistics, and we want to get out of that. We need to analyze companies and how they perform to enable banks to take action for those companies.
Okay. First question from the audience asks, is your solution scalable to other industries?
Yes, we have. We are working. We have been accepted in a Crédit Agricole accelerator, and one of the things they have done is also to connect us with corporate. And our solution can be deployed for one of the biggest problems that is plaguing the calculation of CO2 emissions for companies, which is scope-free emissions. So with our tool, you can actually assess better what is the emissions of your supply chain. And you can do it. Remember, it's very important that we do it at scale because we have very limited amount of time to be able to act.
Okay. Tell us more about your business model.
So we have, as I said, a SaaS platform, and our unit of price, effectively, it's the answer that we generate for each question, and that's because our biggest cost is that. So we use that as a way to measure both our cost and our revenues. And we want to cater for relatively small banks who want to do maybe smaller, most of the times they don't have a big ESG team, so they don't need to do too many reports. So let's say an order of 500. They can do that affordably. They are outpriced from data providers, and very often they simply need a cheap solution to do it quickly because they don't have an inside team. From that on, we increase the cost. Obviously, the more people use, the cheaper it is for us, and we have huge margin every time we produce an answer, and then we have obviously an enterprise model where we are able to do more sophisticated things, such as not only in terms of adding better services such as API and things like that, but really to do more ad hoc model and more sophisticated model that requires more skill, and then they are more valuable and they are priced at very high value. But fundamentally, the basic assessment is really accessible to everybody, so we can build our brand in this very competitive market.
Okay, I think that brings us to time. Let's just get one last one in very quickly. Where does the data you train on come from?
Well, it comes from, in some cases, public report, and also from report that we obtain through our pilots. And the other very important thing is that LLM have a huge bias towards confirming things. So we do a lot of what are called negative testing. So we insert and inject wrong reports to make sure that when things are wrong, the LLM knows how to discard it. So we are perfectly comfortable in saying, we didn't find anything in this report. Or, we don't try to please, we try to give a ground truth.
Thank you very much indeed. Well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to our next pitch of the afternoon. Please put your hands together and give a very warm welcome to Anastasios from Mechapres.
Hello. So I'm Anastasios from Mechapres, and what we do is we deliver clean heat to industrial processes, and we do that to industrial customers. And to do that, we need your help. So if you come from the industry and you have your connections, please come and find me afterwards. And the thing is that we all know that I need a clicker in order to go to the next one. So here it is. Big industries need a lot of heat in order to produce. And that means a lot of, when you're based on fossil fuel, a lot of loss of money and valuable resources. And there is this 2021 report that says that in the UK alone, the estimated value of the industrial waste heat that is being lost is 3.5 billion per year. Now, everyone knows what heat pumps are. Now, when it comes to industrial heat pumps, that becomes exclusively more interesting and complex. And yes, they are a compelling solution, and industrial heat pumps are welcome in the industry. However, they are very hard to integrate. And they are costly, bulky, and excruciating difficult to integrate. And how do I know this? Well, our team has done more than 150 industrial audits in the last 15 years, trying to squeeze industrial heat pumps in industrial sites. And based on these insights, we decided and developed compelling new technology of industrial heat pumps that can actually go in there, and that is Mechapres. Mechapres offers the superior answer to this, not because it is so different, but because it does this little step of pre-integrating storage with a heat pump. This reduces the overall size of the solution, reduces the cost, reduces the complexity and the time for integration. We have already patented our process, and we're working now to patent our compressor. And as you see, the key here, compared to all other industrial heat pumps in the market, is the pre-integration of thermal storage. Now, to go to this market, we work together and partner with existing suppliers of industries, and we have already interest from 8 industrial equipment manufacturers, and with them we offer our energy as a service solution. We're validating our technology right now in a mining site in Greece, where we're testing our compressor and heat pump for the thermal side of our solution. We are also working in parallel with a new project in Scotland, a cheese manufacturer. Our system works currently at a compression ratio of 2 at 6,000 RPM, and in the next few months we're raising this to 24,000 RPM, waiting to achieve more than a 5 compression ratio. Whoever understands a little bit, this is very challenging, and we're happy to be there. But it's really important for us to achieve our goal, which is 10,000 operational hours by 2027. We need multiple testing beds to do that, and this will allow us to go to the market with our energy as a service model and launch it, and our licensing agreements. So here we are, looking for industrial sites, especially from the pulp and paper industry. That would be amazing, but there are also other sectors that are looking for our solution. And right now, it's the UK we're focused on, so please let us know. I will be in the second room down the corridor, where the dirty industry is trying to become clean. So thank you.
Okay, before then, you can get questions in. So let's ask you to use Mentimeter again to submit your questions, scanning the QR code. Let's start, Anastasios, with one about why your offer is significantly better than your competition.
Well, there are many reasons. However, I believe the most significant one is that we have simplified the integration process due to the thermal storage being there. However, we have also done some other tricks, like shrinking our compressor and making the storage an opportunity to produce more heat with a smaller heat pump. So there are several, let's say, differentiators that bring us forward in the market, and that's why we built it, actually. It's the missing things that made us do this.
Fantastic, okay. Question in asks, why is paper and packaging so interesting as a sector?
Okay, so very recently we worked with a large compressor manufacturer, and they opened our eyes in front of this opportunity. They explained to us that especially Europe is struggling in the paper sector, and they are eagerly looking to reduce their energy costs. We've seen a few cases. We understand that we can offer a lot in this sector, and it's a hungry, let's say, industry. If they don't do it, they will go bankrupt. They will need to close down their European industrial plants, and I think this is an amazing opportunity for us to coexist.
Great, okay. Moving on, if the invention lies in the compressor technology, are there other applications for that technology?
Yes, of course. But what we have seen is that knowing an industry is the opportunity itself. As I said, we come from the industrial thermal energy efficiency sector. We do understand very well processes and how to improve them. So although our compressor can work in other applications, we have left this for later on. And right now we're focusing on industrial heat pumping, on waste heat and solar.
Okay. The next question asks, what heat variability can the compression system withstand?
Actually, because we use water as our refrigerant, there is a specific area where our compressor and heat pumping system is, let's say, much, much better. So it's the range between a little below 100 and up to 200 degrees Celsius. Outside that, it doesn't make a lot of sense to go with water as a refrigerant. We're eager to explore, but right now that's our focus.
Understood. Okay. What would be your ideal pilot partners to help you refine your solution, asks one audience member.
Well, based on our experience, it's really important that the pilot site has some understanding of change and change management and be a little bit open and flexible on hosting new equipment. Sometimes this is not the case. Some sites are very focused on production and they don't want to stop or do anything different. From our side, we do understand the difficulties of integrating a new system in an existing plant. So we do always our preparation to make it really easy for them, but sometimes it's not possible. So our focus now is to find sites that have some space to let us show to them what can be done on a percentage of their production with a test pilot, and then we can discuss scale up.
Mm-hmm. I think we have time for one more question. Is there a cost advantage for your client via non-clean technologies?
Of course, yes. It really depends also on the country, on the price of electricity, on other aspects, but there are specific cases where it's an amazing solution, other cases where it's a very good one, some others where it doesn't work. It's really about the numbers and the specifics. It's not a general solution that can go everywhere.
Okay, I think that brings us to time. Anastasios, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next to share their innovative approach with us, please give a very warm welcome to Alex from Biophonic.
At Biophonic, we're developing acoustic sensors and AI for profitable, ecosystem-friendly agriculture. Our friend Leonardo had a very astute observation. We know more about the movement of celestial bodies than about the soil underfoot. And over 500 years later, that is still true. We know more about the surface of Mars than we do about soil, even though we rely on it to survive. Soil is, in fact, the most biodiverse ecosystem on the entire planet, and it's this dynamic, living biome that's responsible for naturally efficient and resilient crop systems. But sadly, we've rapidly destroyed a third of our soils from our reliance on chemicals like pesticides and physically intensive methods that kill the soil biome, degrading it and diminishing our ability to grow healthy food. We urgently need to flip the farming paradigm and go from killing the soil to cooperating with it. We're first applying our technology as an early warning system to detect soil pests, which are particularly expensive. We spend $83 billion a year on pesticides, and we still lose over $300 billion of crops. And this loss will only get worse as global temperatures continue to rise. Instead of blanket spraying chemicals across an entire field blindly, a network of always-on biophonic sensors can hear hidden soil pests before their damage is even visible to the human eye, cutting chemical costs in half and significantly reducing crop loss, stress, and backaches with a payback period of less than 2 years. Each of our multimodal sensors contains custom-engineered, finely tuned microphones for listening to soil, which might sound a bit far-fetched, but acoustic data is relatively low cost to collect and offers continuous, rich insights on multiple factors of soil health, beyond just detecting pests, but also beneficial species, structural health dynamics like water and compaction, and whole system biomonitoring. Our initial pest management market opportunity is significant and growing, but our real value lies in our long-term data infrastructure. As Biophonic data grows, so will its capabilities and opening access to new markets in soil testing, precision agriculture, and natural capital monitoring. In fact, we believe our technology may be the only technology capable of practical, continuous monitoring across the entire soil health trifecta. Our most capable competing technologies simply aren't scalable, kind of like a manual fingerprint blood sample, while we are the continuous glucose monitor providing tailored preventative care. We're a team of deep tech innovators with over 25 years of combined experience developing breakthroughs in similar technologies like wearable sensors for human health, acoustic sensing systems for nuclear decommissioning robotics, and ultrasound-based systems for brain-to-machine interfacing. Thus far, with our current grant funding, we've been able to achieve ultra-low noise, high-fidelity acoustic performance from our low-cost technology, and we've advanced model development on 9 species and counting with the help of our expert advisors and partners. Biophonic began by listening to and co-creating alongside farmers, and in this way, we have been able to grow our network of early adopter customers, including Riverford Organic Farms, where we're trialing this summer. Right now, we're focused on refining our MVP with our strategic partnerships and evidencing its adoptability and real-world on-farm value. This will open up the door to large-scale agronomists and food producers who are really feeling the financial and ESG pressure right now. These multi-site, large-scale pilots will allow us to expand our data footprint, hardware footprint, creating a pipeline for our unique, high-value data that will then be able to license to data platform providers and complementary tech who have expressed a dire need for better soil intelligence to deepen their tech, allowing us to scale beyond our hardware. We are standing at the surface of a vast, untapped frontier of new discovery just below our feet. And we're looking for visionary partners who care about saving our soils for healthier food and a healthier planet to join us on our mission to revolutionize ecosystem-friendly agriculture. Thank you.
Well done. Okay, time for questions. And again, please scan the code, the QR code you see on screen to submit those questions for Alex from Biophonic. And let's kick one off, Alex, with how precise your technology is. Can you actually tell the difference between different species?
I'm so glad you asked, Ryan. Yes, so in our early model development with our partners, entomological partners at Harper Adams, we have been able to distinguish even between morphologically similar species like earthworms, wireworms, slugs, just based on how they sound when they're kicking about in the soil, even down to microscopic nematodes. But really, that's kind of the focusing on the important species-specific work. But at large, when it comes to a complex system, we're actually more interested in the continuous data, right? When you think about something like weather, for instance, it's a complex swirl of tons of different molecules with different levels of energy and super, super complex. But like, you wouldn't look at a list of all of these individually identified molecules in order to decide whether you need a jumper before you go outside, right? And similarly, farmers we speak to, when they do some of these precise profiling, they don't really know what to do with it. What we think the beauty of the continuous data is transforming these micro-scale interactions into macro-scale trends that actually inform decisions and have real-world impact.
Okay. Question in from the audience asks, what has been the response from users so far? And how do you plan to expand in a market where pesticides appear to be the easy cheap route short term?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So all of the farmers who have been super keen to use our tech are hungry for this type of solution, particularly those who are already trying to change their methods. It's an incredibly knowledge-intensive process to do and extremely risky, right? Everyone knows a farmer who has lost the farm trying to change things up. So they're looking for better ways to do this. And yeah, I think we can provide that. In terms of pesticides, there is a shortening list of pesticides that are available, not just in the UK and EU, where regulation is particularly high, but the cost of pesticides and chemicals are actually increasing, right? They're not actually that cheap, and farmers are starting to get wise about the fact that it is a shot in the foot to keep applying these chemicals because they're going to not be able to grow the same amount of food in the same amount of land that they have.
Okay. Beyond pesticides, how can this solution reduce chemicals and the cost of farming inputs?
Yeah, that's such a great question. In terms of some of the larger picture kind of precision agriculture work that we're looking at, let's say structure, for instance, we're really interested in water dynamics. Water, I mean, maybe less so in the UK, although increasingly so with our warm summers, is going to be probably one of the most precious resources and inputs that a farmer will have to potentially pay for. And being able to do this type of subsurface water analysis, not just moisture, right? Like we're talking infiltration, we're talking about how it interacts with their methods and their changes. That's going to be key in order to help them save money.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Another question asks, who will you sell to? And do you have to have a sense of what the business case for your clients will be?
Yeah, so like I said in the previous slides, we're first focusing on farmers because at the end of the day, those will always be our end users. The people who manage the land have to be able to adopt the tech and see the value for themselves. But then we will be scaling to kind of large-scale partners and then ultimately be able to sell the data to platform providers who, for instance, satellite providers. We get a lot of interest from satellite, carbon mapping, all those types of remote monitoring solutions because they simply can't get at subsurface or fine-scale analysis, and that's blocking their own value propositions.
Okay, a great range of questions there, but I think we are out of time. So thank you very much indeed. Okay, that brings us on to the final pitch of this section. Please put your hands together for Sam from Medusa Materials.
Hi, I'm Sam from Medusa. And I think in your booklet somewhere it says that we mineralize CO2. And that is where we started. We set out our journey with mineralizing CO2 at low energies using enzymes. But the story which I will tell you today is about the tools that we created along the way. We're able to scale from an idea to lab to mineralizing 50 kilograms of CO2 in just 3 months. Overall, we're able to compress our whole R&D pipeline from 18 to just 3, from an idea to filed IP. And I want to take this opportunity to walk you through how we did it and how we can help you do the same. The key is in automating the scientific method. We've been doing research for a really long time, and we know how hard it is and painstakingly slow it is. And there is a giant rift between the science of today and yesterday and what can be tomorrow. But I personally believe that all the tools that we need to cross this rift already exist. And with this in mind, we created our AI agentic systems. We grounded them in science and gave them ability to run their own experiments, to simulate things. We taught them to do experiments from chemical kinetics, predicting yields of chemical reactions, to setting up the whole bioprocessing simulations, pipelines, to using common chemistry tools and software that computational chemist or a researcher would use on their own. And that's all cool, I guess, but how does it actually work in reality? An example of this is how we automated our CO2 mineralization techno-economics. Question of how much will it cost to mineralize a ton of CO2? At its surface, it's a simple question. Cost of inputs, price of outputs, it's done. But if you start thinking about it a little bit deeper, what machines will I use? How will my supply chains look like? How will changing operating conditions affect the bottom line? Suddenly, it becomes exponentially complex. And that's exactly where we implemented our AI systems, running thousands of simulations in parallel, searching out through data sheets of potential vendors, and even exploring the whole parameter space to find the most viable processes. And my co-founder, Veronica, and I, we lived through the pain of the slow, iterative process of scientific method. Veronica, through her experience in wet labs, doing research in Alzheimer's and biotech. Me, in physics and machine learning. I published my first peer-reviewed paper when I was 16. We've been seeing this problem all over, again and again, slowing the innovation that can be implemented. And I truly believe that the science of tomorrow will not be limited by the painfully slow execution, but we will be able to drive the vision forward. And yesterday, we started our closed trials with select researchers across Imperial, UCL, and startups that use our AI systems to accelerate their discoveries across material science, pharmaceuticals, and synthetic biology. And I want to be crystal clear now. My ask to you is, if you are a scientist, a startup with that thinks that they can move faster in their R&D, if you know someone that we might be able to help, please come find us after, reach out to us, or scan the QR code and fill in the form. Thank you.
Well done. Okay, and we welcome your team member onto the stage for the Q&A now. And let's kick off while we're waiting for your questions to come in with one about your plans for the intellectual property you've created, specifically related to the low-energy CO2 mineralization technology.
Well, we pushed the CO2 mineralization as far as possible and generated valuable assets, which now are slowly spinning out from Medusa, and finding partners that are able to scale it up to substantial amounts.
Okay, brilliant. Question from the audience. What is your current roadmap to commercial deployment?
So for our phase 1, we have this closed trial where we want to work with around 10 to 20 different startups in the space of biology, chemistry, or process design, where we want to exactly identify the problems in their R&D cycles. Then we want to generalize these principles to create so first of all, we're going to be a consultancy-based startup. Then we're going to transition into a pay-as-you-go SaaS model. So then we're going to have 2 different tier systems, one for startups and PhD or different scientific lab innovators, and then an enterprise solution. And that would come in a year after we completely refine and trial our technology.
Okay. Moving on to another question from the audience. How will you gain the trust of researchers to use your platform?
What we have noticed from own experience and from talking to the early adopters that we have so far is the skepticism mainly comes from you not seeing what it does and why it does it. Taking over, the AI taking over your work instead of collaborating with you. And this is central to how we constructed our AI systems, that they brainstorm with you, they come up with solutions together with you. They just are let loose to execute once you both understand exactly what needs to be done. And this is the cornerstone of the trust. It is not a replacement of the researcher, it is an extension of their abilities.
Okay. Another question asks, can you walk us through how and what tools and data you use to automate the simulations, in particular regarding the process design?
Sure. Doesn't work. So our agents are able to use computational tools by writing their own simulations in mathematical languages. That's one thing. Second thing is they're able to operate common simulation tools in process design. We integrated DWSim, which is like AspenTech from those in process design or chemical engineering. Regarding data simulations, yeah, so these are the tools that it can use. And then the data currently is your own or our own, that it runs the inference on and decides how to use it to implement into the simulations themselves.
Maybe just to add on to that point, if you're creating domain-specific agents, you want them to have a very curated knowledge base. So we're training it on thousands of patents, on peer-reviewed papers, on different textbooks, on all the very nuanced literature in a very specific subdomain. So whereas you get your Claude or your ChatGPT, those are general models. Those are really big, but what we're trying to create is very narrow, specific, actionable agents.
Okay, that brings us to time. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you to Team Medusa Materials and all of the teams you've seen in the first section. I think you'll agree they've all done a really fantastic job. We're now going to take just a few moments to allow you to score each of the teams that you've just seen. A reminder just to head to menti.com. You can see the QR code on the screen above, which should take you to the right place. Just enter the code 35830641. And you may need to refresh your browser and click the next button to get started. I'll just give you a few moments to do that. And before we dive into the next lineup of innovators, I'm delighted to introduce you to a leader, a true leader in the climate tech space, to share their wealth of experience with you today. Kim Zhou is the co-founder and CEO of Sightline Climate, a go-to market intelligence platform helping build clarity and insight to the fast-growing climate economy. Please give a very warm welcome to our keynote speaker, Kim Zhou.
All right. Good to see you all today. It's very bright. Excited to chat with you all today. It's a fun and exciting and also kind of scary time to be in climate, I'll be honest. So what we wanted to talk about today, I've done a lot of versions of this presentation, but I think given light in the current environment, what I wanted to do today was actually give everyone here a framework for how to think about building a company in the climate tech space. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So who am I? What do I do? What is Sightline? Who here has heard of the CTVC newsletter? Okay, a couple hands. Nice, nice. So for those who don't know, we started a newsletter at the beginning of 2020 called CTVC. And this newsletter has now grown to one of the leading sources on climate tech and energy innovation. We have over 70,000 subscribers, founders, investors, corporates, banks. And about 2.5 years ago, I used to be an investor as well. About 2.5 years ago, I decided, this newsletter is a really great way to share information and data in the space. Why not scale that out? So over the last 2.5 years, we've basically expanded the CTVC newsletter into a broader market intelligence company called Sightline Climate. We work with corporates, investors, and banks to help them navigate all of this emerging climate innovation, energy innovation, et cetera. And so since the very beginning, we've started tracking investment that's gone into the climate tech space. Deal by deal, company by company, from energy to the built environment to carbon, we've been tracking venture, growth, private equity funding that's gone into the space. There's been almost 200 billion that's gone into the space, which is actually pretty exciting when you look at it at the macro level. There's only about 25 billion that went into cleantech 1.0 over the same 5-year period. So even though we're starting to see that investment trail off, there's still a sizable amount relative to the first clean tech wave. And then when you zoom in to that investment, 80% of it has just gone into 3 of the 7 sectors. So primarily transport, energy, and food and land use. And this is interesting when you actually compare it to the emissions pie. where climate tech investment dollars is not actually aligned with emissions, right? There's a lot that's gone into transportation and far fewer that's gone into industry, even though it's the second highest generator of global emissions. When you turn this around and look at this from a deal activity standpoint, it's actually a bit more closely aligned, but it's definitely harder for companies in industry, in carbon, in built environment to raise those larger size checks. And then 2024, we saw a lot of changes in the macro environment. We saw a lot of changes in the fundraising environment. There was a sort of downturn, right? Investment in the space has come back down to 2020 levels, about 40 billion in 2024, whereas we saw a really big spike in 2021 and 2022. And one of the things many of you in this audience probably know is that climate tech is hard, right? It's hard tech oftentimes. A lot of you are building physical tech, hard tech, it's CapEx intensive, and oftentimes it goes through this journey where you raise early stage capital either from academia, from government, to build the first version of the tech, and then you raise perhaps venture capital to actually build that tech into a pilot, into a demo. But then once you get into that first commercial or first of a kind stage, it gets pretty challenging to find the hundreds of millions of dollars of capital to go from that demonstration stage to that first commercial stage. And so historically, this has been called the Valley of Death. We've been calling this the gap because Valley of Death is a bit, deathly. We've been calling this the gap. And I think it's good for this audience to understand what does that actually mean if, I'm going on this journey to build a climate tech company. And this gap exists because there's a risk and reward imbalance. For venture capital, there's high risk, but there's high returns. For project finance and commercial debt, which comes way later, which is where solar and wind is, there's low risk, low return. In that gap, there's high risk, low return. And so that's the challenge that a lot of companies, as they scale in this space, tend to face. And we've seen how hard it is to build a first of a kind. Add Northvolt to this news headline. But what does this mean, right? It's not all bad news. It's not all bad headlines. How do you in the audience, as an investor, as a founder, navigate all of this? And as sectors start to move to deployment, as technologies start to move to deployment, how do we have a proper framework to think about scale up? And so we at Sightline, we love frameworks. And I think historically, when you think about investing, you apply a financial framework, right? You look at margins, you look at customer acquisition costs, you look at all these numbers. But oftentimes with climate tech, you kind of have to step away a little bit from the financials and think about the bigger picture. And so think of this in a way as an investment framework, a diligence framework, a scale-up framework for climate tech. So the first category we look at is technology, right? That's probably a lot of you in the room today, as part of the cohort, are thinking about this part. How do I de-risk the tech? How do I ensure it's deployable out of the lab into the real world? So that's kind of the first step. The tech obviously has to work. And so here's an example from some of our research. We've mapped out the timelines of different technologies. I think fusion has always been one of the, it's 10 years away, it's 10 years away. Okay, well maybe this time it's actually 10 years away. So we're starting to see some fusion projects enter that, call it demonstration commercial phase, but still in 2030. So the tech still somewhat has to be de-risked. Okay, the second category is financing, right? Probably the next step a lot of you are thinking about. Is there capital available and what type of capital? And it's not only the amount of funding that matters, it's really the type of financing that matters. And so here's a chart we made for carbon removal. You can see that carbon removal investment has decreased, okay? But I think what's particularly interesting is that the amount of carbon removal or the type of carbon removal financing at that later stage has also declined, Series B growth. So that is a challenge, right? Is there capital available? Not just how much, but also is there a growth stage? Is there later stage capital available? The third category is demand. And I think this is actually the one that often gets missed because, you can build a tech, it can get financed, but will someone buy it? Will someone pay for it? Do they have willingness to pay? And even now, I think more and more so, the willingness to pay a green premium is starting to diminish. You really have to be able to demonstrate there's cost competitiveness or better performance. And so demand, the two questions to ask here is who will pay for it how many will pay for it, right? I think sometimes the challenge with some of these markets is you might have 1 or 2 customers who will pay for it, but do you have a scalable amount of customers that will pay for it? And so the types of information and data we're tracking here is committed offtake, contracts, and willingness to pay. SAF is an interesting example where over the last few years, we've started to see a steady increase and a little bit of a tailing off of SAF offtake agreements announced. So we've tracked over 100 SAF offtake agreements, particularly not just the airlines themselves, but a lot of the tech companies who are looking to decarbonize their Scope 3 emissions, a lot of the larger sort of airline coalitions as well. And so it's a good signal, at least, that there's demand in the SAF space, that there's also regulation, right? Refuel EU, the UK has its own version that's commanding that demand. And so this is a key thing, I think, oftentimes, people in the space forget about, that there has to be real demand. And I think hydrogen, a lot of the boom and bust with hydrogen has been associated with that question of who will pay for it and how many will pay for it, and also what is their willingness to pay. And so demand is an important one. The fourth one after demand, once you know people will buy it, then you build it, right? So I think the other key metric we're tracking here is deployment. Projects or solutions and deployment. So the questions we're asking here are projects getting built? And if so, what projects are actually progressing? Everyone here, I think, has been following all this AI data center stuff, I imagine. All the hyperscalers saying, we need more clean firm power. IEA says that data center demand growth is set to double in the next 5 years. And so all of a sudden, you have this huge, huge source of demand for more power, more firm power, and ideally clean power as well. And we're seeing that translate into deployment. So particularly, 3 kind of areas of clean firm power or bringing more load growth onto the grid. One is geothermal. Fervo Energy in the US has been recently broke ground on the world's largest enhanced geothermal project in Utah, Cape Modern. TerraPower is a nuclear company. They've started construction on an advanced reactor in Wyoming. And then even grid tech as well, which I think people don't think of that as clean firm power, but is really critical in actually enabling more capacity onto the grid. Started building. TS Conductor is an advanced conductor company, also starting to build their second facility. And so tracking actually project deployment, what's getting built, why it's getting built, is also another really important metric when thinking about scale up. And so we have geothermal, nuclear, grid tech starting to move to this next phase, which is an interesting one, right? This is, I think, one people don't often look at, but we call this key players. And so what does key players mean? Are there large players getting involved? Is there an ecosystem? It's honestly a little bit of 2 separate questions we smushed into one. The first question, are large players involved? When you look at a lot of these sectors in climate tech that have scaled, solar, wind, EV charging, batteries, it's not just startups anymore, right? It's incumbents. It's oftentimes large energy majors who have acquired renewables developers, or large PE firms like Brookfield that are getting in the game. It's a really good signal for, hey, this thing is maturing. It's no longer just early stage. It's a lot of large players getting involved. The second question, is there an ecosystem involved, speaks more to the value chain, that there's starting to be specialization in the market. It's not just one company trying to do the whole thing, vertically integration, like Tesla did for EVs and EV charging, but you're starting to see specialization in the value chain. And that's also another signal that the market has started to mature. So here we looked at EV charging. This comes from one of our reports we've done on the EV charging landscape, who's involved, and you can really see both the large players as well as the specialization in the value chain here. So EV charging, it's no longer just a bunch of vertically integrated players like it used to be with ChargePoint. Now you have players that are doing specifically the equipment, players that are doing the managed charging, the software, the optimization, players that are actually doing a lot of the turnkey development, specifically developers, and then also everyone in between that's sort of sitting across that value chain. You're also seeing a lot of corporates that have come into this space as well. There was a huge spate of acquisitions of EV charging companies by BP, Shell, et cetera, back in the early sort of mid-2010s. And so this is, again, another signal of a maturing and scaling ecosystem. Are there large players, and is there specialization in the value chain? Okay, we're getting close to the end of that curve, as you can see. This is kind of the holy grail in a way, right? Economics. The holy grail is, can you be cost competitive or even cheaper? And so the questions here is this something that can benefit from economies of scale? And I think something that we always look at in climate tech is can it be a product, right? Or does it have to be a project? And what's the difference? A product is something that can be modularized. It can, be produced at scale. You can experience that exponential cost curve coming down because you can make a lot of it, you can get the learnings out of it, the learning curve, and you can start to scale down that cost curve a lot faster. Whereas with a project, oftentimes you have to build it one by one. It's very capital intensive. You don't experience that same high rate of learning curve. And so that's a question, right? Can it benefit from economies of scale? And then the second question is, can it get to cost parity or is it at cost parity? There's been a lot of flack, about EVs in the last few years, that maybe EVs aren't growing as much as everyone thought. But at the same time, EVs are coming down to cost parity, and in some cases, especially in China, actually cheaper than their ICE vehicles. And so, again, a signal for market maturity, commercial maturity, sector readiness. Is it at cost parity? Can it come down to cost parity? And so EVs kind of sits in economics. And then the final one, it's really not, a category, a phase, but it's really an underlying driver for all of this, right? Which is policy. Is there a carrot or is there a stick? Obviously, some of you can tell maybe I sound a bit more American. America has historically taken more of the carrots approach. Europe and the UK has historically taken more of a sticks approach, but that's also starting to change, right? The EU recently announced their version of the Clean Industrial Deal, which is going to hopefully allow a lot more carrots to come into the European climate tech ecosystem. The first version of this carrot, Inflation Reduction Act, which was announced in 2022, we'll see what happens to it. Everyone's sort of waiting with bated breath, but this was a good example of carrots, right? Tax credits that can start to accelerate that cost parity, that can start to drive economics by creating, a bit of a buffer to allow these technologies to be cost parity while they're working on getting this cost curve down. Or you can take the sticks approach, which is saying, hey, industrial emitters, you have to pay a price, so EU ETS, you have to pay a price in order to, on carbon in order to operate. And so this is sort of the sticks approach, which can also really, really drive demand. So in Europe, we're seeing a lot more demand for, cement decarbonization, steel decarbonization, shipping decarbonization because of this stick. And so there you have it. This is the sector readiness curve. We find it to be a very useful framework in evaluating technologies, evaluating companies, evaluating sectors in climate tech. It's a really good way to think about, what does a company, what does a technology need to show in order to get to scale? Obviously, this is a high-level framework. Sometimes one will come before the other, but it's a really good sort of proxy for thinking through the key milestones associated with scale-up in this space. And we did our own version of this, again, lots of this up for debate, so we can have a chat afterwards on where you think what belongs where. But we started to actually put, different climate technologies, different energy technologies on this sector readiness curve, a little bit of momentum as well. So for example, hydrogen, maybe taking a step back from deployment into demand. We're seeing a lot of projects get canceled because it didn't quite hit that demand mark. But on the other hand, a lot of activity in solar and storage. Batteries and energy storage, we had historically put in key players, economics. Now that's really, really starting to shift into that exponential part of the curve where solar and storage is cheaper, better, faster, right? More available than a lot of other, even fossil counterparts. So use this framework, apply it to your companies, apply it to your investment diligence. We really think that this is, in a way, a useful metric to think about how to scale up a company, how to evaluate companies in this space. So thank you.
Many thanks to Kim Zarider with a brilliant keynote speech this afternoon. Time to turn our attention back now to our startups. And this session will run in much the same way as the first part of this afternoon. We ask for your involvement towards the end of each pitch with your questions. And the focus for this session is sustainable materials and circular economy. And to kick us off, I'm delighted to hand over to Renuka from Howard.
What if onions were the key to a plastic-free future? I'm Renuka, the founder and CEO of Howard, a biotech startup that's converting onion waste into food-preserving, compostable packaging materials. Now, we all know single-use plastic waste is a global crisis, and one that I've seen firsthand growing up in Southeast Asia. 150 million tons are produced every year, wreaking havoc on our ecosystems, and a third of that is food packaging. With plastic taxes rising, retailers are scrambling for alternatives in a global £97 billion packaging market. And legislation is pushing them towards paper, a known and trusted material. But that growth puts unsustainable pressure on our forests, and like other compostable materials, it lacks the performance of plastic in weight, grease, and moisture proofing. Namely, it doesn't keep food fresh. But that's where Howd comes in. We create better, functional food packaging materials from onion skins. Our first products are onion fiber paper and molded items that are lightweight, therefore reducing transportation costs, emissions, and weight-based packaging taxes. They also ease fiber supply chain issues. But next, we're working on antibacterial films and coatings derived from onion skins that can extend the shelf life of fresh produce for up to 3 days longer than standard plastic films, saving retailers thousands in food spoilage. But at the heart of our innovation is our extraction process. We extract 2 key ingredients and put them back together to create our materials. The first is cellulose, which we isolate in 10 minutes using food-grade chemicals, 10 times faster and gentler than wood pulp. And we're patenting this process within the month, and it can drop into existing infrastructure. The second ingredient are bioactives. And these are the things that give our materials their shelf life extension capabilities. And we're currently refining this process so it can work alongside our fiber extraction in tandem. But you might be asking, why onion skins? Well, onions are global, so their waste is too. There's over 600,000 tons generated each year in the UK and EU, and more globally, with no use or value and available year-round. In fact, it costs farmers money to get rid of them. So we turn this burden into value. They're also rich in those antibacterial compounds, which can be very useful. Now, our model is to license our extraction and formulation processes to pulpers and manufacturers so that we can scale quickly with impact and serve the large enterprises that are asking for our solutions now. But what our pulpers need is a clean, reliable source of raw material. So we're co-developing an automation with a trusted machinery partner that will lease to onion farmers so they can clean onion skins in situ that are often dirty when they come from the farms and make over 60 pounds per ton from their waste. We're starting off in the luxury packaging sector where we've already made early revenues from lifestyle brands and are working towards a distribution deal with the UK's premium paper merchant. And subject to food contact testing, we'll enter the fresh produce packaging market where we have interest in pilots from Westphalia, the EU's largest avocado distributor, and Oscar Mayer, the UK's largest ready meal producer. We've also had inbound interest from the likes of Coveris and WSES Global, who supply Burger King and Costa. Our team has expertise in biochemistry, material science, and product development, and we're backed by a packaging industry expert. We've raised over £200,000 in government funding, and we're looking to raise our pre-seed round to upscale our fiber processing and certify those materials to get our pilots going and finish the R&D on our bioactive film. Our goal is to work with trailblazing end retailers, so we're looking for you. And we're also looking to create a low-carbon material and support agricultural communities globally. And with that, I invite you to our stand to see, touch, and smell how onion skins are unlocking a plastic-free future. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you very much indeed for kicking off the second session. To get your questions in using the QR code on the screen now. And Monica, let's click one off, looking at how, whether there is a big enough market in paper, which is, of course, a mature industry?
Great question. So we're starting off in paper because our fiber extraction process is easiest applied there currently. But with food, let's talk about food packaging for a minute. A lot of the questions we get are, oh, there's recycled paper, which is super cheap. How can you make this work? Well, first off, I don't know if you know, but recycled paper fibers aren't suitable for food packaging because we don't know if they have any contaminants. So really, any paper food packaging you have is made of virgin fibers. And as one of the other cohort members mentioned today, we're cutting down trees at a rate where the growth we have cannot sustain the trees that we're planting. So we need other virgin fibers that are readily available. And onion skins can plug this gap readily at a global scale.
Okay. The first question in from the audience, why onions?
Why onions? Because, I mean, everyone here has had an experience with an onion. I think beyond the relatability, I think food waste, and we see that it's a really scalable option. There's over 21 million tons generated around the world. So in the UK and EU, we're only a small fraction. So this has been designed in mind with true global scalability at the forefront. Yeah.
Okay, that answers why onions. Moving on to the next question from the audience. How does raw material collection fit into your business model?
So currently, we're luckily, we have a system in place for that. Onion farmers readily collect onion skins. There are lots of extraction pipes on their packing lines that suck up the dust and the onion skins as the onions bounce around the conveyor belts in the factory. So they're ready in pallets. And instead of sending them to anaerobic digesters or landfill in some countries, they can just go to pulping facilities. So it's really very simple.
Great, okay. Moving on to the next question that we have in from the audience. Let's see, yes, here we go. Can you tell us more about the manufacturing process and who you're working with to deploy your technology currently?
Yes, so the manufacturing process is essentially a refining process where we extract those valuable components from the onion skin. So those pulpers I mentioned, they have the infrastructure in place to do this chemical refining, and we've checked, that it's all compatible reagents-wise, et cetera. So we can work with these pulpers, but we've also interestingly seen from a few onion farmers who are very keen to get this going, that they're willing to make the investment to put pulping infrastructure on their sites so they can make even more revenue. So we have the option, depending on how we want to scale, with a small pilot on an onion farm. But to mention some larger names, Nafici is one of the pulpers that we're looking to work with who specialize in non-wood fiber pulping.
Brilliant, okay. Moving on to the next question. Is there a time restriction on the antibacterial qualities of the onion skins?
Yes, so our studies have seen that they have a sort of general effectiveness for around 72 hours, which, if you're thinking in the likes of fresh produce, that is kind of a lifetime. So one of the contacts we have that is really keen to use this technology is a berry farm. And they've said to us, even 24 hours for us is game-changing, because that means we reduce the transportation that we need to get our berries out every single day. We can make it every 2 days. And you can imagine how those transportation costs then are severely reduced. So I think there's a lot, even in that 72-hour window, that can be effective for suppliers.
Okay, I think we have time for just one more question. What's your TRL currently?
Yeah, for the paper solutions, we're at TRL 6/7. And for our film and coating, their early days, our bioactive process, is at a TRL 4, and our film and coating at TRL 3.
Okay, Monica, thank you very much indeed. Okay, next to a really exciting venture to be pitched. Please welcome Ria from Sea Sprout.
$12 million tons of prawn shells are discarded globally every year. And due to high cost of disposal, almost 40% of it is illegally disposed in waterways, causing eutrophication of water, biodiversity loss, and dead zones. And in the UK, 60% of the prawns that we consume comes from countries like India, Indonesia, and Vietnam, where the waste is left behind for the local community to deal with. On the other hand, every single piece of plastic ever made still exists. And I don't need to tell you why this is a massive problem. Now I want you to imagine Now, I want you to raise your hand if you've ever bought a bag of frozen, pre-peeled prawns. What about a box of sushi? Thank you. Now, I want you to imagine if that sushi tray was made up of prawn shell waste instead of plastic. That's exactly what we're making possible at Seasprout. At Seasprout, we transform prawn shell waste into plastic alternative packaging material. We have a family of films, foams, and coatings. Our Biofoam is a styrofoam alternative. It is lightweight, easily moldable, and compostable. It can be used in the protective packaging because of its antibacterial properties, thermal insulation, and good shock absorbency. For our trial, we have partnered with a leading luxury jewelry brand to make in-store packaging, and we're in the process of licensing our biomaterial technology to a manufacturer in Kerala, India, to manufacture pharmaceutical packaging for transit. We have a B2B business model, and licensing our technology allows us to seamlessly enter multiple sectors from cold chain packaging, seafood, and pharmaceuticals. In the coming months, our focus is on getting certifications from home and industrial compostability certification, filing our IP patent in India and globally, and scaling our production from lab scale to a trial production unit in Kerala. Seasprout has been showcased at major industry, won prestigious awards, and we've also been showcased on BBC with brands like Leon Seafoods reaching out to us, knowing when they can start implementing it in their supply chain. I'm Ria Thomas, the founder and inventor of Seasprout. I have a background in industrial design, and I've been recognized as a goalkeeper by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I have a small yet mighty team with expertise in engineering and legal expertise. Today, I'm looking for a material scientist to advance our material innovation technology, and also advisors in regulatory and compliance and supply chain. So if that is you, come and reach out to me. So the next time you buy a bag of pre-peeled prawns, know that Seasprout is taking that prawn shell waste and turning it into something useful. Thank you.
Okay, time for the Q&A now. And let's kick one off with a question while the audience get theirs in, Ria, about where you're getting the raw materials from. Is it consistent and scalable?
Yeah. So raw material is like a very important part of Seasprout, and we're focused on getting our raw materials from frozen seafood units. And so one of our partners that we're working with in Kerala, so they produce around 72 tons of, they process around 72 tons of prawns every day, and that's around 300 tons per month. So we're essentially taking the waste off their hand, and they're also saving on like disposal costs. And for us, even if it's different types of prawns, it doesn't matter, because we're essentially extracting the chitin and using that. So it's a scalable process, and yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. First question in from the audience. How much plastic demand is it possible to displace with your solution, and what is the supply constraint?
So I think we're focused on very much using our strengths as a material, what are our strengths. So it's the antimicrobial property that's inherent within shrimp. So looking at industries where they need to replace the plastic. So for example, the pharmaceutical industry needs this right now with the need for plastic alternatives, and with the material providing them that antimicrobial property, it kind of fits in with what they're looking for. And what is the supply constraint? So far, I don't see a problem with the raw material processing. It's about getting to scale what the industry needs.
Understood. Okay. The next question from the audience. Which markets will you enter first, and why?
So based on our customer discovery and also with our trials, we're looking at the pharmaceutical industry and the luxury jewelry packaging industry as segments that we're entering first, because there's been like a demand from them, and also we kind of fit in well with the kind of antimicrobial properties that they require, and also like the shock absorbency that the packaging materials in the luxury segments require. So those are the kind of two segments that we're looking at entering first.
Okay. Next question in asks, how do you position yourselves on a market where other natural materials are already being used for packaging?
I think one of our key differentiator, again, comes down to our material properties. So not a lot of bio-based materials have antimicrobial properties, so you have to like chemically tailor the material to meet those requirements. So whereas we're an entirely natural-based process, and also another advantage is our raw material comes to us practically for free. So material cost is much cheaper because of that. We're not paying to get our raw material, which is also another key differentiator.
Do we have time for one more? Let's see if we have another question to come in. Have you done any allergen testing on the end product?
Yes. So chitin is actually, there's no allergens, because when we kind of remove the compound that we're using to make the biomaterial, the allergens are kind of removed. So the compound that causes the allergens is basically not there in the finished material.
So people with a prawn allergy wouldn't have an issue?
No, there wouldn't be an issue. So actually, this, so the surgical threads that's used in the industry is actually made from chitin. So anybody can use it, and that's not going to cause an issue in anybody's body.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. We're out of time. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much.
Okay, moving on to our next pitch, the startup to the stage now. Please give a very warm welcome to Tim from Blue Biotech.
Hello, everybody. As you've just heard, my name is Tim Corcoran. I'm the CEO of Blue Biotech. We make carbon-neutral chemicals which are better and cheaper than the ones that they replace. Globally, the chemicals industry contributes about 8% of CO2 emissions, which is quite a lot. But green chemicals have largely failed to cut through. This is partly because they are generally more expensive and not as good as the chemicals they're trying to replace. Companies, consumers, they don't want that. Fortunately, at Blue Biotech, we have a solution. That solution is cyanobacteria. Now, slight formatting issue there. For those of you that aren't familiar with cyanobacteria, let me quickly explain. It is the most efficient photosynthetic organism on the planet. It's the reason we developed a breathable atmosphere in the first place. It needs just water, light, and CO2 to grow and to thrive. And it can be genetically engineered to make useful products. These three things taken together mean that this is the cleanest technology available to us for the manufacture of chemicals. Our technology is based upon a deep understanding of the genetics of cyanobacteria, strain engineering, and a low capex, scalable manufacturing process. The very first piece of research we did was to look at which chemicals our cyanobacteria is predisposed to make. You can see here on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a list of a few of them. It's quite a long list. So in trying to determine which chemicals we should start with first, we did a bit of market research. We wanted to look for something with a high price and a big market. That led us to polysaccharides. Specifically, it led us to hyaluronic acid, which some of you may have heard of. It's very popular in the personal care industry, especially the skincare sector. Critically, from our point of view, the market is big, it's growing fast, and the price point is typically north of $2,000 per kilogram. By contrast, we can make it for approximately $1,000 per kilogram, and we will be selling it for $1,750 per kilogram. This makes us simultaneously cheaper and greener than the competition. We estimate that for every ton of our hyaluronic acid used, 7 tons of CO2 will be captured or mitigated. Not only that, because our cyanobacteria is an ocean-based strain, it means our clients can make some unique blue beauty claims about their products containing our ingredients. That enables them to charge more, and it enables them to sell more. Our route to market involves developing strong relationships with the personal care companies. They, in turn, put pressure on the chemicals companies to work with us. Now, when we told them that we could save them money, make them money, and reduce their carbon footprint, they were quite keen. We've had a lot of very positive conversations. In fact, so far we've secured 3 LOIs with Unilever, Croda, and Aethic. We have a number of others on the way. We've won 2 Innovate UK grants so far. We completed our pre-seed funding round in October of last year. In the lab, we've just completed a really detailed techno-economic analysis of the process, and we currently have 4 genetically modified strains of cyanobacteria making hyaluronic acid. We have another 8 currently in the pipeline. We're working in the lab at the moment on optimizing those modifications, trying different combinations to get the best possible yield. We're also working on scaling up the technology and on the downstream processing, which is an important factor in the economics. We're aiming to achieve full industrial production by 2028, net profitability the same year, and our first sales in 2026. This is our team. Between us, we combine an in-depth understanding of the genetics of cyanobacteria, personal care industry, innovation and procurement, and experience working with and within early-stage companies, scaling them from startup through to successful exit. We're Blue Biotech. We'll be opening our seed round in Q3 of this year. If you'd like to find out more, please come and find me afterwards, or you can email me on that address on the screen. Thank you very much.
Well done, Tim. Okay, over to audience questions now. And while we wait for those questions to come in, let me kick one off. We have your team member joining us on stage to answer those questions too. Welcome. So let's start with something you talked about in your pitch. You mentioned you're starting with hyaluronic acid. Looking ahead, what will your next product be?
It's a good question. We've had a lot of inquiries when we speak to personal care companies and we speak to the chemicals companies. We've had a lot of requests, can you do X, Y, and Z? I think there are a number of viable candidates. It will depend a little bit upon the economics. Again, you want to be competitive as early as you can. The intention is to work down that pyramid, so we get down towards the more commodity chemicals as the technology gets refined and improved.
Okay. The first question from the audience, is this solution 100% carbon neutral? And if not, what are the barriers?
It's potentially carbon negative, never mind carbon neutral. Where the energy comes from matters. We're looking at, amongst other things, creating a plant whereby we have solar and wind power to power the systems that we do have. But it's much more energy efficient than any other resources at the moment. So we do need to make sure that the energy is clean, but as long as that's the case, it's carbon negative.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The next question from our audience, why not go straight to the consumer market as a blue beauty brand?
I'll let Manu take that one.
Building a brand is quite expensive. I think that the main reason of us working as a B2B player is because we can address several, in order to build that scale, that we need to create the critical mass to gain those economies of scale. We will put the focus in make our process more efficient, our cost even more effective than it is today. Creating a brand has other parameters that are much more complex, much reliant on investment, and is not a typical VC-backed model. So we are better off in this process.
Okay. Moving on to the next question from the audience this afternoon. Other than the personal care sector, which others are you looking to enter?
I mean, there's a hell of a lot we can do with the personal care sector alone, but if you take just the hyaluronic acid, that can go into food, it can go into pharmaceuticals. The regulatory barriers are much higher. So we start with personal care where the regulatory barriers are much easier, and then we can look at branching out.
Okay. Moving on to the next question. And what footprints do you need to grow the bacteria and product factories?
Yeah, you need a large photobioreactor. That's the critical thing. So because hyaluronic acid is very expensive, you don't have to make millions of tons. You're looking at hundreds, thousands of tons in the first instance. Now, we're looking at a yield of about 1 gram per litre. So if you can get a 1 million litre photobioreactor, we've seen some out in Portugal. We went out to visit in November and December last year. You're looking at about a field size photobioreactor will make you a ton of hyaluronic acid every week. 1 ton is about £2 million, so it scales up quite quickly.
Okay, moving on, we have time for at least one more. Tell us about your IP strategy.
Yeah, so we're going to be filing our first patents later this year. We have got patentable IP now, but we're worried if we go too soon, we tip our hand. So we want to wait till we've optimized the yield and some of the processes as well.
Okay, I think we do have time for one more. How easy is it to extract product chemicals from biomass? Is it a batch or continuous process?
It's quite easy because the process has been designed to secrete it into the media. So we just extract that media and then purify it from there. So that's quite straightforward. And it's, we could do it both ways. It could be a batch or a continuous process. We have designed that as a batch because that reduces the amount of contamination and potential problems later. So once they have reached the growth stage and it's secreting at the rate we want, we extract the media and then we start again. So that is how we do it, but we have designed the process not to have to process the biomass itself. We're actually looking at how to valorize that biomass, which is another stream that we haven't discussed in detail.
Fantastic. That brings us to time. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
And thank you for a great range of questions there. Moving on to another fantastic pitch this afternoon, please give a very warm welcome to Faili from Air Ceramics.
So before we begin, can everyone take a big breath in through the nose? Really fill the lungs. Hold. Now breathe out. You just inhaled nitric oxide and sulfur dioxide. These cause cancer. Yeah. Air pollution is a silent killer, and 1 in 5 of you in this room is going to die because of air pollution, and probably because of the air you just inhaled. That's the bad news. The good news is this. We have developed a ceramic that takes toxins out of the air like a sponge. It can be made into absolutely anything. Take this plant pot. If we were to use it on the floor and as the wall panels of this room, it would reduce pollution levels by 23% in 24 hours. It's how many plants do you think we would need in this room to do that job? Shout out anyone. How many plants in this room? 1,200 plants would be needed to do that job in here, all crammed next to you. So this ceramic is made from natural minerals. It's affordable and scalable. It doesn't create any byproducts when it's in use. It's easy to maintain. You just need a simple little wipe. It lasts for around 15 years, and at the end of its life, it's completely recyclable. Patent and iOS are in process. Its potential is huge, and we are just getting started. So currently, there is a global demand to reduce pollution levels through material usage. Because of this demand, there is now a green materials market estimated at 1 trillion by 2030. That's where this product sits. People aren't just buying into plant pots and products, they are investing into greener air. We have a big vision. Our big vision is this. We want every single surface of London's infrastructure to be made from air ceramics. So what I'm talking about here is roadblocks, sides of buildings, roofing, bus stops, statues, you name it, all absorbing air pollution. Imagine if local councils used this in schools and what benefit it would have on children. We want to create air-scrubbing cities across the globe. We are going to make our cities breathable. We've already begun on this journey. We're currently trialling with the UK's biggest modular homes providers, and we're already in talks for our year 2, which is to trial with local councils. By year 3, we will approach major transport hubs and airports across the globe. We are starting small, but scaling quickly. This is who's noticed us so far. But now we're looking for two things. One, someone who's as courageous and fearless and who is obsessed with air pollution as we are, to come on as our commercialization co-founder. And two, architects and companies looking to pilot our product. So if you know these people, or if you're one of them, we want to speak to you. Before I go, and before you leave this building tonight, I want you to do me one last favor, please. Can you when you step out of this building and you're on your jolly way home, can you take a short breath in? And in that breath, I want you to think of us. I want you to think of Air Ceramics. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, over to the audience for questions. And to kick things off, Bailey, let's start with one looking at your competition. Who is your competition and what makes you different from others on the market?
Our biggest competition right now is probably the paint industry because they are releasing pollution-absorbing paints. But what makes us different from them is that our products don't create byproducts. A lot of pollution-absorbing paints, I would highly suggest people research into them because they actually create a lot of byproducts which are very harmful as well. So even though they're doing good, they may say they're absorbing 50%, but usually they're creating 50% of formaldehyde.
Okay, so the manufacturing process. Let's look at the questions from the audience now. And one starts with, what happens with ceramic at the end of life?
At its end of life, like I said, it's completely recyclable. So I can take it back, crush it up, and I can refire it at a higher temperature. Or I can just say this plant pot, if you use it at the end of life, give me it back. I put it into the kiln at a much higher temperature after I've cleaned it. And yeah, it's good to go again. It doesn't have the pollution-absorbing properties, but you will have another beautiful, glossy plant pot.
Okay. Next question. How durable is it?
Very durable. This is, some of you might have heard me say outside that if I was scared at home alone, this would be the first thing I'm picking up. I'm going to prison, but at the same time, I'm safe, so very durable.
It's quite a unique proof. Okay, how quickly does the material saturate? How often would the objects need to be replaced?
So right now, it lasts for 15 years. But structurally, so it's as in terms of how long can it absorb pollution for, it would be like around 15 years for this plant pot. But structurally, I'd say around 20. After the first 20 years, it won't be as strong as it once was.
Okay. Moving on to the next question. How scalable is your manufacturing process currently, and when do you expect to be able to produce large quantities?
Right now, there's just a few of us, so that question is when I can get a co-founder, and so if I can get a co-founder in, I can give you a much quicker answer for that one. But I would expect to be producing large quantities within the next probably 18 months. It's just, co-founders and help.
Great, okay. Where do you get the active raw materials for the ceramics?
I get them all from UK-based suppliers locally, just because obviously in ceramics, getting your minerals, it can be a costly thing. You can go abroad to places like China, but obviously then you've got to think in terms of sustainability, how good is that? But yeah, they're all from locally sourced mines and material suppliers in the UK.
Okay, moving on. How much does it cost versus normal ceramic pots?
So this is in line with the average ceramic pot in the UK. It's probably a couple of pounds more. So I'd say if a pot is like £12, ours would be around £13, £14. It's pretty much in line.
Okay. And just time, I think, for at least one more. Let's see our next question. Why has no one else done this?
Well, because if it was that easy, everyone would have done it. That's the only answer I can give you. It's not about... The easiest part was how to make the clay active and absorb pollution. The hardest part is basically making a clay that you can form together and mould like this. Ceramics isn't easy, as in you need to know how plastic your clay is, and it's working that. So that's the reason why, probably, because it's a very long and laborious and so many trials, so many errors. And like I said, if it was that easy, everyone would have done it. But I'm just very determined and stubborn.
Okay, I think we have time for just one more. Do we have time for one more question? No, we don't. That brings us to time. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Okay, very well done to Bailey from Air Ceramics there. And moving on, please keep that round of applause going for Jean and Lucy from Terramirror.
Hi, we're Terramirror, and we're developing a bio-based alternative to elastane for knickers that are stretchy and sustainable.
Elastane is a synthetic fiber that is added to textiles, typically between 5 to 10%, to provide the stretch, the fit, and the comfort our underwear relies on. Yet, this fiber is fossil fuel-based, it's toxic to produce, it contributes to microplastic pollution. But the worst thing is that elastane makes any textiles containing it impossible to recycle. It has a very low melting point, which clogs recycling streams. And so for us, it was crazy to think that this small 5% is blocking the fashion industry efforts towards sustainability, but more precisely, circularity. And so, yeah, clothes ultimately ending up in landfill, like they're not recycled.
So, brands have tried removing elastane, but customers weren't happy with the fit, leading to declining sales. There have also been attempts to produce alternatives to elastane. But I'm sure you're not surprised that in a world of bold sustainability claims, our biggest competitor claims to be bio-based, but it's actually 63% derived from petrochemicals. So, we're developing a fully bio-based, compostable alternative to elastane using the natural stretch properties from seaweed. The process begins by extracting the necessary compounds from seaweeds. Then, at Terramirror, we take these compounds and transform them into a bio-based fiber. This can then be knitted or woven into textiles just like elastane. But seaweed is an incredibly sustainable feedstock. It doesn't require land or fertilizer. And our process operates under low temperatures without the need of toxic solvents. In fact, we're working with textile producers early on to ensure that our fiber fits seamlessly into their processes, saving them from extra costs and a headache down the line.
Our strategy is to start with the UK underwear industry. We've shown the most readiness and where sustainability meets necessity. What I mean by that is that the underwear are the closest to our skin, and no one really buys them secondhand as well. So from that, we see a potential to expand into other markets where stretch is important, like sportswear and denim. We are the right team to take on this challenge. I am bringing a sustainability and business background with first-hand insight on the global fashion waste problem, while Lucy is an award-winning bioengineering team leader with R&D industry experience. So since we started Undaunted, we've conducted more than 50 interviews with experts from different industries. We learned a lot and actually realized that there was a real need for a bio-based alternative to elastane, specifically for the underwear industry. So we continue our market validation, attended trade show in Europe and Vietnam, spoke more with the industry, and we understood that there was a clear opportunity and need. This was further validated by the H&M Foundation, who selected us as a top 20 finalists out of 500 global applicants for the Global Change Award.
So, we're developing our prototype with exciting new academic collaborations for testing and refining our fiber. We're working on getting our prototype ready for industry pilots at the beginning of next year. We'll be patenting our product, and we'll be ready for investment in the autumn. But we know that our innovation alone is not enough. Real progress in sustainability comes through collaboration. So, if you are a part of any of these industries, we would love to learn from your insights and create meaningful change together. Thank you.
Okay, well done, brilliant pitch. Time for questions now. And let's kick one off with something you mentioned in your pitch. You talked about your biggest competitor claiming to be bio-based. Do you have any competitors that are biodegradable or compostable?
That's a very good question. So Actually, the whole end-of-life aspect with biodegradability and compostability is really what we're focusing on, but it's and what is at the heart of our mission. But actually, when we look at our market research, it is only part of one aspect of it. There's also the questions of the feedstock which our competitors is using, as well as the process they're using to make our fiber. And so, for example, two competitors that say that they are fully bio-based and fully biodegradable. Sorry. One of them may remain majorly on petrochemicals. So actually, that questions then the production process and also the end of life, continuing with microplastics, etc. And then our second competitor that claims to be biodegradable is using natural rubber, which is a very limited resource, and actually the EU has deemed it as a critical raw materials. So that has further questions on the future of and scalability of the process, and it's also linked with deforestation.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense. Okay, moving on to questions from the audience now. And the first question asks, does the fibre soak up water? Can it be washed?
So, yeah, this is a great question. And as an engineer, it's a challenge. This fiber needs to go through a washing machine. And that is a very difficult challenge indeed. We are making the fiber able to resist water, and we are engineering it in a way in which it's not going to soak up anything, but it's difficult. And the idea is, yes, it can be washed. But as you can imagine, this is a long-term goal, to produce a fiber that's fully bio-based and machine washable. So, on the way to creating this fiber that can actually be machine washable and compostable at the end, I'll be working on developing iterations of this fiber, while Jean is working on our commercialization strategy. And actually, we're already partnering with a sock brand that is looking at creating single-use socks for airplanes that simply get thrown away. But they could be instead created with our bio-based fiber instead. So, in the short term, maybe it's not so much of a problem, but in the long term, we're working on it.
Okay. Moving on, is it more expensive than current alternatives? And if so, why do you think brands will pay a green premium?
Of course, it's going to be more expensive than elastane. Elastane is a petrochemical, and everything made from petrochemicals is usually the cheapest option. But brands are already paying more for these alternatives. As Jean mentioned, there are brands that claim to be biodegradable and simply aren't, and the brands are already paying more. And we're in conversation with lots of them that are worried about the cost, but really what they want is a truly sustainable solution, and we're going to be able to provide that for them.
Great. Okay, I think we have time for at least one more. How durable is it?
I mean, we want this product to be able to survive your underwear over many life cycles. So we are still in the R&D process. We don't yet have a figure on our durability, but of course, we have it in mind that we want this product to last as many lifetimes in the washing machine as possible.
Okay, just time for one more. How long will it take to commercialize the process?
Mm-hmm. I mean, do you want to answer it?
No, go for it.
Okay. Okay, sure. The commercialization, well, as I mentioned, if the first step is creating a fiber which can be used for single-use socks, that's a pretty short timeline, because to get to a single-use fiber is not going to take us very long. To get to our end goal of a machine-washable, compostable fiber, it's going to take a bit longer. But as I mentioned, we hope to be ready for industry pilots at the beginning of next year.
Okay, that brings us to time. Thank you. Well
done. Thank you so much.
Okay, moving on to the penultimate pitch of the afternoon. Please welcome Claire, representing Sequinova.
Can you hear me? Yes, wonderful. Hi, everyone. I'm Claire, co-founder of Sequinova. We are pioneering the next generation of sparkle materials at scale for the fashion and cosmetics industry. In fashion, this looks like the sparkle sequin textile I'm wearing right now. And in cosmetics, think of the glittering pigments in every single makeup item sold today. The planet is burning, so why sparkle? Because we now know that microplastics are a huge threat to our ecosystems and global health. And the textiles and cosmetics industry are responsible for 35% of microplastics worldwide. Sparkle materials are made from plastic, metals, and synthetic colorants, none of which biodegrade in the natural environment. Our biodegradable alternatives exist to eradicate and replace these materials altogether. And the time really is now. Both the cosmetics and fashion industry are under huge pressure to phase out these materials. Starting in cosmetics, in 2022, the EU banned plastic glitter. In a panic, the industry shifted en masse to a mined mineral called mica, known to be mined on the other side of the world by children. This is a ticking time bomb, and the industry knows it. In fashion, the ESPR legislation is kicking in, meaning that fashion companies are now fully responsible for the end of life of every single garment that they produce. What fashion companies tell me every day is that they know categorically that they need to phase out plastic or face crippling penalties. And the number one thing that has to go, sequins. A $15 billion industry set to almost double in the next decade, now at risk. Our bio-based alternative looks, feels, and performs exactly like the real thing. This is, in fact, a close-up of our material, and I am wearing our material, and you wouldn't know. Our material looks, feels, and performs exactly the same as plastic, which means that it requires absolutely no consumer behavioral change. Not only that, it's also a direct plug-in to industry, meaning that it requires no manufacturing behavioral change either. Both are critical for mass industry adoption. The material is made from cellulose extracted from wood and bioengineered proteins, which, mixed with our color tech, gives the illusion of a high-gloss plastic. It's all very clever. But the superpower really lies in our plug-in supply chain, which has meant that we've been able to scale quickly, cheaply, and effectively. We have a clear plan to get to price parity in under 2 years, and already at MVP scale, we're already priced commercially. It takes quite a special group of people to pull this off. This is us, a mighty team of 3. That's me, Claire. I started my career in China, in fashion sourcing and manufacturing. Last year, I teamed up with my co-founder, Mark, who has built, scaled, and sold biotech companies over the last 30 years, and Agna, our head of operations, who keeps everything on track. Last year, we were the underdogs. This year, we're first to market in fashion, making us the ones to beat. This is the Sequinova material on the Paris Fashion Week runway just a few weeks ago with Stella McCartney. For those of you who don't know, Stella McCartney really is the industry reference for next generation materials. When Stella jumps, the rest of the industry follows. And we're not just on the catwalk, we're commercializing with her at the end of this year, meaning we've beaten the biomaterials timeline by years. Oh yeah, that's me at Paris Fashion Week, posing. That's Stella, that's me with Stella, having a whale of a time. And she told me, and I quote, "Without you, I'm screwed." Now, if Stella is saying that black on white, the rest of the industry is thinking it and feeling it too, which is why we have a long list of international fashion brands queuing up to sample and adopt our material. Our go-to-market strategy is to start with luxury fashion and in the next 12 months move to mid and mass industry fashion as we scale. And once we've achieved international cosmetic certification, to move into the cosmetic space as well. We've done this until now with no funding, entirely bootstrapped, which is why it is time. We are raising $1.5 million to reach full commercialization on the fashion vertical, to really accelerate our commercialization, and to expand into the beauty vertical with a total addressable market of $18 billion. I'm Claire, co-founder of Sequinova. We're putting the shine back into sparkle. Thanks so much.
Well done. Claire, thank you very much indeed. Okay, time for the Q&A, and the code is back up on the screen if you'd like to submit your question. Let's kick off with one. I don't know why you'd want to move on from Stella McCartney telling you you're saving her from being screwed, but how do you move on from fashion runways to scale up globally?
Absolutely. So our supply chain is designed to plug into multiple third-party manufacturers, which means that we're already at semi-industrial scale. So it really is just a case of securing those orders, passing all the tests, and selling, which I'm leading. So far it's been going all right.
Good, glad to hear it. Okay, first question in from the audience. Are you able to replicate colours and shine that traditional sequins have?
Yes, but we are currently slightly limited on colour range. That's one of the things that we're doing. We need our fundraise for is to develop new colours. Our colours are water and heat resistant, which is why the cosmetics industry is desperate for them. It's very difficult to achieve water and heat resistance while being bio-based. So we've achieved it with black. We now need to do the rest of the primary colours and refine our metallic effects.
Brilliant. Okay, moving on. How much cellulose is used per kilogram and how large is the carbon impact?
You mean per kilogram? Oh, this is getting quite technical now. I will answer it. Do you mean kilogram of finished textile? Do you mean kilogram of film? Okay, per kilogram of film, we would use, so 60% of that would be cellulose. And how large is the carbon impact? We're currently measuring that as we speak and doing a very holistic approach. And it's not just carbon emissions, but also microplastics, microfibers, how they perform in the environment. So far, they're passing ecotoxicology, which is a relief. We always knew it would, but it's good to have the data. So we're not just measuring carbon, we're measuring the whole thing.
Okay. Moving on, are there applications beyond fashion?
Yes, absolutely. Cosmetics is the obvious one for our colour and our glittering pigments as well. The Sequinova material is a composite material, so every layer of the material has its own unique IP, which in and of themselves actually do disrupt other industries. So namely our bio-based adhesive, which is water and heat resistant, is definitely gaining the interest of a very large furniture company, which I will not name, and our pigments is also interesting, a very large toy cube company that I will not name. So yes.
Brilliant, okay. Moving on, what happens at the end of life for Sequinova products?
So it depends where they end up. We would love for them to be recycled. We've built recyclability into our textiles. We would love for that to happen, but the reality is that post-consumer waste and fashion is just not recycled. So they will end up in incineration or landfill, and that's just a structural flaw in this industry. In landfill, they will biodegrade in 2 to 3 years. A normal sequin textile would take centuries, and when incinerated, they emit far less carbon emissions than a traditional plastic sequin. So we would love to be able to be in a world where they get recycled, but being very realistic into where these garments do end up, they perform much better at the end of life.
Right, okay, I think we have time for one more. What are your key bottlenecks?
Funding.
Short and simple. In which case, we do have time for one more question. Is there another one to come through? No, I think that's the last question in. Yes, we do. What is manufacturing scale-up plan? What's your manufacturing scale-up plan?
Sure. So we're scaling up in Europe as we speak. The one thing that we need to scale in-house is our protein and pigment production. So post-fundraise, we'll be scaling that up in-house. And then we need to start scaling in Asia as well. So onboarding the right partners in Asia. We've started that already just to be able to hit that scale.
Fantastic. Thank you. That brings us to time. Okay, thank you again for a brilliant range of questions there. And to wrap up this section, please join me in welcoming Diana from Celio to the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Diana. I'm co-founder of Celio, where we keep medicines cold and stable with seaweed. Today, 50% of vaccines are wasted globally. Just let it sink in. Imagine all the resources going into research, development, and distribution of those medicines, only for a half of them to end up in waste. That translates into around $15 billion in losses and 650 million tons of CO2 emissions. Even more importantly, such wastage claims lives of 3 million children annually. So what's the reason? It's mainly because of inadequate packaging that fails to protect medicines against temperature fluctuations during the final step in delivery, called the last mile. The archaic cooling boxes are made out of polystyrene packed with ice packs, which is both unreliable but also environmentally dangerous. The industry is desperately searching for sustainable, affordable alternatives designed for the very unique challenges of last mile delivery. And that's where Celio comes in, offering a novel packaging material that can keep medicines cold passively, effectively, and affordably. Our solution stands on 3 pillars. Being seaweed-based, it's a single-use packaging that can be safely disposed of and will decompose in up to 6 weeks after disposal. That's seaweed. It reduces distribution costs by over 38% by optimizing packaging volume. The insulative layer of our material is 98% air, which is great for both thermal performance, but also for reducing the weight. And finally, it is adaptable, which means that it can be molded to the exact shape and size of the medicines being transported. So right now, the medicines are just thrown into the container, creating a huge amount of dead space, which lets warm air in and makes it more difficult to keep medicines stable. What we do is encapsulate vials directly into the coolant, which allows us to unlock the full cooling power of our material. When combined, our materials perform 2.5 times longer, maintaining the safe temperature ranges than current styrofoam and gel packs configurations. Our unique IP lies in our material formulation and multi-layered design, and we're currently in the process of patenting it. Competing solutions with similar performance come with premium prices. More affordable or environmentally friendly options simply do not perform. And lastly, none of them are adaptable for last mile. We're positioned in a 28 billion pharmaceutical cold chain packaging market driven by biologic-based medicines, such as vaccine, insulin, injectable antibiotics, and others. We target 1.5 billion segment known as smaller parcel containers, because this is where the gap of innovation is. And we're entering the market targeting high-value, low-volume shipments, frequently found in biotech, medtech, and clinical trials. We are a team of 2 innovation design engineers who also grew up in developing regions, Ukraine and Brazil. Witnessing social and environmental inadequacies firsthand drove us to create impactful technology. We're supported by 2 advisory board members specializing in material science and cold chain logistics. Since our inception earlier last year, we won multiple grants and awards, secured over 100,000 in non-dilutive funding, and we're currently preparing for 3 trials. One with a medtech firm who would be even willing to pay premium as long as we cut their distribution costs, with a logistic firm who wants to switch to sustainable packaging without compromising on performance, and with a vaccine research group who is just unsatisfied with their packaging size. We are currently raising 500,000 to scale our manufacturing, prepare for larger scale pilot transition, and expand our team. I'm just going to leave you with this thought. Just at this pilot stage, 1,000 packs of Celio will prevent 50,000 kilograms of CO2 emissions and save 600,000 vaccine doses. We're always looking to connect. So whether you know a new industry where we could make an impact or represent a different stage of the value chain, please do find us today. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Diana, well done, and we welcome your Celio team member to the stage for the Q&A. Let's kick off with one about the fact that your solution doesn't yet exist. So what are your customers currently doing to solve the problem?
So the current, the most frequent trend in the market is pushing for reusable containers, which are huge, bulky, heavy, polyurethane-based boxes. And they're completely impractical. The industry hates them. But on top of it, they would be sustainable if they were used 50 times, like intended. But in reality, they only end up being used 10 times, and then they're still destined to end up in landfill.
Okay. Moving on to a question from the audience. Does having a produce that degrades within weeks cause logistical issues between production and use?
I'll take that one. Yes, it's definitely something we have to factor in with distribution, but our materials are designed in a way where from manufacturing to distribution, they only start degrading really once they've been put in a certain environment. So they're really safe within the temperature range that they operate in.
Okay, moving on to the next question from the audience. Are you planning to manufacture in-house or to license?
So we are starting with manufacturing in-house for the trials and the pilot stage. As soon as we move into larger pilots, which is planned for next year, we will need to outsource the manufacturing. And we do eventually plan to license our material, but that's kind of in a 2-3 years timeline. First, we need to gain credibility in the space, and then we can license it out to other companies.
Okay, right. Moving on. Where do you get the seaweed from?
Well, currently, since we're mainly lab-based, we do supply it from larger pharmaceutical manufacturers and suppliers, but we're currently working with more local farming and harvesting right here in the UK and looking to scale that as well.
Okay. How scalable, talking of which, is your solution? Are there any applications beyond pharma?
Absolutely. Pharma is what we've targeted right now due to the real lack of innovation in the space for decades. But we've received tons of interest from industries such as a built environment from an installation point of view, but also a thermal energy point of view, which is what our material does. But also other, even EVs and food packaging as well.
Okay. Moving on, how easily can your product be manufactured with existing infrastructure?
Still in development, but obviously one of our biggest competitors is polystyrene. And so we're working closely to make sure that we do operate within similar bounds to their manufacturing processes. There will obviously most likely be some adaptation that those factories would have to go through, but we're trying to make it as minimal as possible.
Okay. Time for at least one more. Why does the packaging have to be single use?
Well, industry loves it. So as I mentioned before, the sustainable trend is pushing for reusable boxes, but it isn't practical. So there is this whole fascinating process called reverse logistics, where you need to ship your box, but then you need to ship it back. And sometimes for a box kind of this size, which is not big, it can cost around $300 to ship it back, empty, no medicines inside. So it incurs a huge cost on the customers. So everyone absolutely loves to just send packages off and have no worries, but obviously it's just unsustainable.
Understood. Okay, I think we do have time for one more. How energy intensive is production?
It's actually extremely low. The temperatures we use are minimal. One of the things we are trying to minimize is water usage. But outside of that, it's a very simple process to go from raw material to our two separate materials.
Okay, that brings us almost to time. Thank you very much indeed. Well done.
Thank you.
A hugely diverse and varied group of pitches throughout this afternoon, and thank you for such a fantastic range of questions too. That brings us to the end of the second session of pitches, and we'll now just take a few moments to allow you to score each of the teams that you've just seen. Again, please head over to menti.com using the QR code on the screen, and the code you need to enter is 35830641, again on the screen too. And just a reminder, if you're having problems, you might need to refresh your browser and click the next button for it to work. I'm going to give you a few moments for scoring and then return. Okay, it looks as though many of you have managed to get your scores in. Thank you very much indeed, and feel free again to continue submitting those. While we wait for the scores to be counted, I'd like to introduce two very special guests to the front here. We're thrilled to have with us Professor Becky Parker, the founder and director of Project Earth, which is a charity affiliated with the Earthshot Prize, dedicated to empowering young people to innovate for the planet. And Becky also teaches at Simon Langton Girls Grammar School and is joined today by 10 of her talented students, who I understand are somewhere in the audience. Can get a hello from you all. There we go. Yeah, very quiet 10. We're also really pleased that Becky is here today with Manuela Borba, who is the co-founder of Pure Day, which is a student-led venture born from Project Earth. Please join me in welcoming them both to the stage.
Hello, I'm Becky, and I'm thrilled to be here. I'm a physics teacher. I've been one for about 1 billion years, and I know that young people are just amazing. And like my kids put a payload up in space using CERN technology. They beat NASA, had to report their results to NASA. NASA actually weren't that keen at one point because Trump apparently was visiting, and they didn't like the idea of young people, knowing some things. Of course they're amazing. So what if we put amazing brains when they're 8 to 18 to work on the climate and biodiversity crisis? What if we had all these amazing innovations even earlier? So what do they need? They need some support. So I thought I'd write to Prince William and say, what about a younger version of the Earthshot Prize? And actually he did write back, and he said, great idea, but I'm a bit busy. And I thought, so we set up Project Earth, and the whole point, that's why we affiliated the Earthshot Prize, because they obviously thought it was cool and a good idea. What I feel as a teacher is what young people need is backup, and obviously teachers are pretty busy, so they might not all have time. So I've amassed about 75 amazing advisors who are there to support the innovation and social transformation so that young people have agency in their future. And we want them to feel positive, that they've got a voice and they've got some chance to influence what is coming up fairly soon for them, rather than just being worried about climate anxiety. And so what we're hoping to do is, like this amazing event, is to have Pitch for the Planet events across the country where school students, I've got an 8-year-old who's devised a beach cleaning machine which melts the plastic and 3D prints it into buckets and spades. We've got amazing ideas, some which will be brilliant, some which may not be, but that's science and innovation, isn't it? Some will be amazing. And so thanks to the inspiration of this event, we're going to run our own Pitch for the Planet events. Please, can you all come? It would be brilliant. But now, thanks to Alyssa and to Micah and Stephanie, who've been so supportive, honestly, it's my dream come true that we've got a Pure Day, we've got a Project Earth project to actually pitch here. And it's my honour you'll see that young people do and innovate amazing things. It's my great honour to again introduce Manuela Borba, who is co-founder of Pure Day, and her innovation project, which she's going to pitch, you'll be amazed at. Over to you, Manuela.
Okay, so hello everyone. It is an honor to be here and be inspired by all of the amazing ideas that have pitched here today. My name is Manuela, and I am part of a team of students that is international, that's coming from Spain, the UK, and Turkey. Today, I come to you with a question. When you think about climate change, you usually think of the main contributors as being those in the heavy industry sector, in the transportation sector, and in the energy and oil sector, right? But what if I told you that one of the golden keys to addressing climate change is actually floating in the air of barns? Yes, the livestock industry is the single largest emitter of methane in the world. Methane is a greenhouse gas with 80 times the warming capacity of carbon dioxide, so it imposes a huge threat to the environment. However, it also represents a hugely overlooked opportunity, as methane is the main component of biogas, a renewable energy source. As my team and I realized that there is an immense concentration of methane in semi-closed and fully closed barns, we could not help but wonder, what if we could purify this methane inside barns for biogas production? And that's exactly what we did. Meet PureDay, a game-changer air filtration system that is able of trapping and purifying methane with up to a 97% efficiency, promising to move the livestock industry away from fossil fuel-derived energy and reduce its emissions. Our system works in 4 main steps. First, we have an ATEX-certified fan that safely draws air into the system with an adequate pressure. Then, we have a series of impregnated active carbon filters that trap pollutant gases such as carbon dioxide and ammonia and volatile organic compounds. After this stage, the system is mainly working with a mixture of nitrogen, oxygen, and methane. This mixture is passed through a polyamide selective membrane that, due to the gas diffusion principle, is able to separate oxygen and nitrogen and release it back into the environment and direct methane into a methane tank for later usage. The tank is equipped with a compressor and an oxygen sensor for safety. We also know that our active carbon filters will clog at around 6 months. So we have installed pressure proofs after each one of them that will show us when these filters need to be changed. Also, if our customers buy our subscription system, we will be providing them with replacement filters before the system gets clogged to ensure efficiency, conveniency, and prevent idleness of the system. We also want to produce as least waste as possible, so we have implemented a circular economy into our business, which means that we will be selling these clogged filters to carbon reactivation companies that will process them and sell them back in the market, ensuring that no filter reaches a landfill. So, why would farmers and companies in possession of barns would want to buy our product? This is best shown through an example. Well, this is Maria. She's the owner of a semi-closed barn in New Zealand with over 200 cows. She is worried about the increasingly common carbon and methane taxes, and she wants to reduce costs. Well, if she buys our system, we have estimated that she will be able to save up to $44,000 a year in electricity costs while being eligible for tax reductions. She will not only be saving money and reducing her emissions, but she will also be ensuring the safety of her livestock and workers, as PureDay will allow her to provide a good ventilation in her barn. A good ventilation is essential for barns, as in only 1 year, 150,000 cows had to be slaughtered in New Zealand due to bacterial outbreaks, and this can be prevented with a good ventilation. We also know that in real life, our target customers are interested in this product, as we have already secured our pilot customer, Bala Dairy Farms, which is the largest dairy producer in Turkey. We also know that as government regulations are getting stricter with the livestock industry, and that there's a pressuring need to reduce emissions, that we will rapidly expand our market from Turkey to Europe, Canada, the US, and New Zealand very quickly. We also know that we're entering a market with a huge potential and virtually no direct competitors. Our main indirect competitor, however, are anaerobic methane digesters, but these are widely inaccessible as they cost about $1.2 million to implement in an average barn. And this is a price that most farmers cannot access. PureDay, on the other hand, is much more accessible, affordable, and multidimensional. So, the big question is, why should you trust us? Well, our team is composed of passionate young individuals who are eager to use their skills ranging from electronics to business to chemistry to ignite change. Our international approach has also allowed us to conduct over 30 expert meetings and collaborate with renowned institutions such as the World Biogas Association, BECO, the University of California, Santa Cruz, and of course, Project Earth. We have also been awarded as Earth Prize 2025 scholars, Diamond Challenge finalists, and award recipients. And a few weeks ago, we attended the Conrad Challenge Innovation Summit, where we were awarded a major prize by Equinor, the world-renowned energy company. Now, we're looking for $20,000 to test our already developed product and developed real-size systems to implement in our pilot customer's barn. Then, we will launch our product into the market to start making change as soon as possible. Now, with science on our side and huge scalability potential, the question relies on you. By believing in PureDay, you're believing in making the livestock industry greener, one barn at a time. Thank you.
Fantastic job, well done. Just a few questions, Manuela, while we're counting the scores today. Well done on a brilliant pitch there. Tell us about the intellectual property behind your technology. Is it patented?
Okay, so we have full intellectual property of our system, and we have already started the patenting process in Turkey. We are also hoping to start the patenting process in Spain very shortly. So, yeah. That's basically it.
And how about the purified methane? What can you do with it once it's stored in the tank?
Okay, that's a great question. So originally we think, well, what can be done is that this purified methane can be directly put in a gas to electricity converter, which is very easy to use, and therefore our farmers will be very quickly able to convert this purified methane into electricity. But we have also spoken with the World Biogas Association, and we have realized that actually we could develop, we could adapt our system to be connected to the pipeline of biogas plants, so this purified methane can directly be converted into biogas for usage.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you. A big thanks to Manuela Borba, the co-founder of Pure Day there, and before her, Professor Becky Parker, for bringing her to the stage. Thank you very much indeed. That brings us to the time that you have all been waiting for, our audience vote winners to be announced, and to present the awards for the 3 startups that have been voted the highest by you today. I'd like to welcome the head of the Greenhouse Programme, Mechapres, back onto the stage. Okay, and how this will work, we will be announcing the 3rd, 2nd and 1st place audience vote winners. It may take a little time to work their way down the stairs, so I'll ask that you keep your applause going for perhaps a little bit longer than feels comfortable, but the award will be given to them and a photo will be taken, so many thanks for doing that. Okay, let's start with our 3rd place winner, as voted today by you. Please join me in congratulating and welcoming back to the stage to accept their award, Howd. Congratulations, thank you very much for keeping that applause going. Next, moving on to our 2nd place winner, and a huge round of applause for Sequinova. Congratulations, and that brings us to our 1st place winner, as voted for by you, our lovely audience here today. Please join me in giving a huge congratulations and a very big round of applause to Biophonic. A huge congratulations and well done to all of the teams who've done a fantastic job in pitching to you this afternoon. Before we wrap up and move on to networking drinks, and I'll just give you a sense of what we've got to look forward to, bless you, please can I welcome back Mechapres to say a few words.
Thank you very much for joining us. I won't keep you too much longer. Thanks for helping us select the top 3 today as well. I've just got one more call to action. If you want to engage with Undaunted in any way, obviously today you've just seen a showcase of one of the programs, which is the Greenhouse. Alyssa mentioned the range of programs we're running, from as early as identifying promising research, to supporting ideas, to supporting pre-seed companies, which we're doing at the Greenhouse, to up to Series A level. So no matter where in that journey you're interested in, make sure you sign up to the newsletter on undauntedhq.org. And I spoke to a couple of you that were interested in mentoring, getting involved with programs, so feel free to connect with me. I can connect you either to other team members at Undaunted or to our program at the Greenhouse. So thanks everybody for coming out.
Okay, that brings the session of pitches to an end, of course, and time for networking drinks. Please make the most of them, and we ask that you leave your lanyards in the boxes that you'll find by the exits. Just keep your name tags on you. And that just leaves me to say thank you very much indeed. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.